They pay their licence whether they're using all those facilities or not.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Very, very good afternoon to you. It's 3 p.m. You're welcome to a very chipper Martin Daubney show here on GB News. We're broadcasting for you live from the heart of Westminster and all across the UK.
Which is a very special treaty because it's the first of its kind ever, if you can believe it, between our two countries. And I see it very much as evidence of the closeness of our relationship as it stands today, the strength of our values, the strength of our joint approach.
On today's show, in around about 30 minutes' time, Sir Keir Starmer and the German Chancellor Friedrich Merz are expected to announce a new treaty. The clamp down on small boats is top of our Prime Minister's wish list, but will freedom of movement and even closer ties to Brussels be the price we have to pay? We'll be live from Downing Street. And GB News has received astonishing footage that shows French immigration forces handing out free drinks to illegals mid-channel. What next? Free baguettes and champagne? Is it finally time to end this farce and defund the French? And today, the Labour Party pushed through plans to give votes to 16-year-olds in a move seen by many as tilting the playing field in their favour. But might their plan backfire?
Oh, they look nice.
Sure, lovely melons.
Don't they?
Because across Europe, young voters are swinging to the right. They're going against woke, and they're driven by TikTok. Well, Nigel Farage, with 1.3 million followers, be quietly happy about Labour's plans. And violent protests have erupted at an asylum hotel in Epping after a resident of the hotel was accused of 3 sex attacks in 2 days, including one on a schoolgirl, just 8 days after arriving in Britain by small boat. I'll be joined by the leader of Epping Council, who's determined for the hotel to be closed down. And that's all coming on today's show. Well, the show is a pleasure to have your company. Well, they can't drink, they can't smoke, they can't drive cars, they can't even join the armed forces on the front lines. And yet the Labour Party is saying it's a tickety-boo idea to hand votes to 16-year-olds. What could possibly go wrong? But how many of them will bother to get out of bed to vote? How many even care about politics? And is it a shoo-in that they will swing towards the left across Europe? There's a backlash against uncontrolled immigration, a backlash against wokery in schools that's brainwashing our young people. Might actually Sir Keir Starmer's plan backfire on the Labour Party? Let me know your thoughts. Usual way, gbnews.com/your say is the way to do so. But now it's your headlines, and here's Tatiana Sanchez.
Martin, thank you. The top stories: 16 and 17-year-olds will be able to vote in the next general election under sweeping reforms unveiled today. Ministers say the changes will modernise democracy and help bring 9.5 million more people into the electoral system. The plans also include automated voter registration and new accepted IDs like UK bank cards and digital versions of driving licences. Campaign finance rules will also be tightened to stop foreign interference and shell company donations. It comes after the turnout at the last election was just over 59%, the lowest in over 2 decades. Sir Keir Starmer and the German Chancellor have signed a historic treaty to boost ties on trade, security and migration. Known as the Kensington Treaty, it's the first agreement of its kind between the UK and Germany. It includes new school exchanges and a legal crackdown on smuggling gangs behind small boat crossings. Downing Street says the deal marks a significant step in tackling illegal migration across Europe. It comes as more than 21,000 people have crossed the Channel this year, up 56% on the last year. 4 Labour MPs have been suspended from the party for repeatedly rebelling against the government on welfare. The Prime Minister removed the whip just after PMQs yesterday, meaning they'll now sit as independents in the Commons. 3 other MPs have also been stripped of their trade envoy roles. One dismissed envoy told us it was petty and a bit pointless. Another MP called the move ridiculous and vindictive. Downing Street insists it's about stamping out disloyalty before Parliament's summer break. In a pioneering first, 8 babies have been born in the UK using DNA from 3 people to stop deadly genetic diseases being passed on. The technique replaces faulty mitochondria from the mum's egg with the healthy ones from a donor. It means children inherit almost all of their DNA from their parents, but some from another woman. All 8 babies were born free of mitochondrial disease, an incurable condition that can be fatal in infancy. The government's flagship Drive project to tackle domestic abuse is getting a £53 million boost to expand nationwide over the next 4 years. It works directly with perpetrators to stop reoffending, with one-to-one casework and measures like protection orders and drug and alcohol treatment. Home Office Minister Jess Phillips says the aim is to intervene early and relentlessly pursue those who pose a risk to women and girls.
What they do is stop the offending happening again and again. They stop the worst domestic abuse perpetrators, the most high-risk perpetrators, from going on to repeat with the same women and children, then on to a next family. This is all about, once and for all, making a focus on the perpetrators and not just tidying up messes after it's already happened.
Britain's jobless rate has hit its highest level in 4 years, rising to 4.7% in the 3 months to May. That's the worst than expected, as wage growth also slowed to 5%, the weakest in nearly 3 years. The ONS says the labour market is continuing to weaken, with job vacancies falling for a 3rd year straight. It comes as economic uncertainty and rising business costs pile pressures on employers. Despite the slowdown, pay is still rising faster than inflation, up 1.8% in real terms. Crunch talks are due this week in a bid to stop a 5-day strike by resident doctors in England, set to begin on the 25th of this month. The Health Secretary is meeting the BMA's Resident Doctors Committee today, but tensions are already high after he questioned their credibility as a negotiating partner. The government says there's no more money for pay rises, though talks may address working conditions. The BMA argues doctors need a 29.2% uplift to reverse years of pay erosion. And Manchester United fans were arrested more than any other club's supporters last season, with 121 arrests. Almost half of those were at Old Trafford, mostly for public or violent disorder. Overall, football-related arrests dropped 11%, but banning orders hit their highest level in over a decade. And those are the latest GB News headlines. For now, more news from me at 12:30.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you, Tatiana. Now, GB News has uncovered fresh and astonishing evidence of the way in which French authorities are not just failing to intervene and stop migrant boat launches, but are actively handing out life jackets and now even free drinks to migrants. Now, this comes as the German Chancellor promises to make it illegal for people smugglers to operate in his country. Why wasn't it already? But nothing will happen for at least another 6 months. Well, our Home and Security Editor Mark White joins us now. And Mark, you've encountered a mountain of video evidence, and the first you're about to show us today exclusively shows just how easy that journey from the French jungle to a UK luxury Hotel Britannia is.
Yes, Martin, lots of people very concerned about the way in which those coming from a jungle in France come here to the UK and are immediately given these very plush hotels. Well, we can see one individual here who is in the jungle just awaiting his chance to get to the UK. Let's take a look at that first. Yes, with the natty music as always accompanying these videos, this gentleman here preening himself, making sure that he's looking nice for the camera as he posts that particular video. And then a couple of days after this video is taken, that same chap is on a boat in the middle of the English Channel alongside his fellow migrants, being escorted as is now routine, by the French Navy across the busy shipping lanes to ensure that they make it safely to UK waters. And of course, greeting them, waiting for them in UK waters, as is again now routine, is a border force vessel, which we'll see just in the next few moments on these images. You can see that the conditions there pretty flat, calm, because we're now into the summer months where making that passage is so much easier. And there, a border force catamaran just waiting for that boat to enter UK waters as it does there. And then, just a couple of days after this video was taken, after Border Force take them on board and safely return them to Dover Harbour, that same migrant in a hotel looking pretty pleased with his surroundings. You can still see him preening and making sure that his hair is in place. And it looks like a very nice hotel to me, Martin. And this is very typical of those who come across the English Channel, who live for weeks, sometimes months, in a jungle. But yet, when they come here, they are given the best of accommodation.
You know, Mark White, we hear all the time, this is people fleeing war zones, the arduous journey. I've been on worse stag do's. That looks like a Jolly Boys tour. They're being escorted in. They're in a hotel room, actually, that many people watching this show could barely ever afford. And Mark White, of course, more evidence from you. The French and the Germans simply standing by and accused of doing almost nothing, even enabling the Channel crossing. You've got some more evidence for us?
Well, yes. I mean, the Germans have been accused of doing nothing to stop people smugglers using their country for the trade in these boats coming across to France. And the French, of course, accused of not doing anything to stop the boats from launching on the beaches, but instead, as we saw in that previous video there, escorting the boats safely over to UK water. But not just that, the handing out of life jackets, and as we found in this particular video that we can show you, handing out bottled waters. This gentleman is his bottle of water there. And the thumbs up to the lifeboat crew from Berck in northern France as they hand over another packet containing bottled water. Cheers and whoops from the migrants to the French for doing that for them. And we've got some more video that we can show you of just this morning. This is Gravelines, which is a beach, a stretch of beach near Dunkirk, which is a popular launching point for migrants. Any day that we have good weather, you're pretty much guaranteed that on this beach there will be a migrant launch. But can you see any French police there? None at all that we can see. Just lots of migrants, about 70 of them or so, just waiting, now running into the water and waiting. And they're waiting for a taxi boat. We've heard about the phenomenon of taxi boats in recent months. These are boats that are assembled in the river tributaries nearby, come down the river into the sea, and there it is, just offshore. Now look at that, that's only waist height. So very close to the shore. We have been told repeatedly by Yvette Cooper that the French authorities are adopting more robust tactics to push these boats back. When is that going to happen? Because as you'll see in a second here, a French rigid inflatable right alongside this boat. Is it pushing the migrant boat back? No. Instead, they're handing more life jackets to the migrants that don't have those life jackets for their journey across to the UK.
Mark White, it's absolutely astonishing. People watching this will not believe their eyes. It's an utter farce. We're paying for all of this. Maybe once and for all, it's just time to defund the French. What else can we do to stop this nonsense? Mark White, you're the best in the business. More incredible footage, as difficult as it is to watch. Please keep it coming. Thank you, Mark White. Always a pleasure. Now, moving on to yet more politics. And the government today has announced that the next general election will see 16-year-olds voting for the very first time. But will the young vote actually go to the left? Because after all, Nigel Farage has 1.3 million subscribers on TikTok.
Guess who's back? Should rapists go to jail? Do you know what? I couldn't care less.
Boris, are you up for it?
Big thanks to all of you. Keep spreading the message and let's make Britain great again. But smoking is a choice. Let's get rid of unwanted people.
So vote for 16-year-olds is a fascinating topic. Let's have a debate about it now. In the studio, I'm joined by GBNews political correspondent Catherine Forster and, of course, the former Labour advisor, great friend of the show, Matthew Torbett. Welcome to you both. Catherine, let's start with you. No surprises. This was put in the manifesto. We saw this coming. The Labour Party, many people are saying, are trying to rig the game, or at least tilt the field in their favour, the assumption being that young people naturally will vote towards the left. But I wonder if times are changing.
I wonder too, and the Prime Minister's official spokesman this lunchtime, it was put to number 10 that were Labour doing this simply because they think it's going to favour them. Of course, they have denied that completely. They say it's about restoring trust in democracy. Angela Rayner, the Deputy Prime Minister, has said for too long public trust in our democracy has been damaged, faith in our institutions has been allowed to decline. I think most people would agree with that. Whether giving votes to 16 and 17-year-olds is going to address that, I think it is another matter. They're also going to look at voter ID, making it easier, being able to use a bank card, also tougher rules on political interference. But it's very interesting, isn't it? Though the Prime Minister, I mean, I remember asking months ago about this, how could you justify this? And the Prime Minister has said 16, 17-year-olds can work and pay taxes served.
How many 16-year-olds pay tax?
Well, precisely, because if you are 16, you are in your GCSE year at school. So at a maximum, because you've got to be in school at that age, the year you turn 16, you could be working on a weekend in the holidays. You're very unlikely to get over that 12,500 personal allowance, at which point you start to pay tax. Even at 17, you're likely to be in sixth form or in some form of training. And also, how politically engaged are young people at that age? Many of them not at all. Many of them will be influenced by their parents or maybe do the complete opposite. But very interesting polling from Merlin Strategy of 16 and 17-year-olds around this. 49% didn't actually even want it to be lowered. Only 18% would vote, definitely vote if there was a general election tomorrow. And of those that said how they would vote, 33% Labour, but 20% for Reform and Conservatives 10. So if you take the left, Labour 33, and the right wing vote 20 and 10 for Reform and the Conservatives, it's pretty even Stevens. So it might work out rather differently, perhaps, to how some might expect.
Isn't it hilarious how half of them don't even want the blooming vote? They'd probably rather stay on their Xbox. Matthew, and I say that, I've got a 16-year-old. Matthew Torbett, is this more free and open democracy? Is it the Labour Party trying to make the level playing field a little bit less level in their favour? And will it have any real impact?
I don't know if it'll have an impact or not. I suppose we'll have to wait and see. And I think one thing it may do is encourage politicians to actually not ignore young people. I remember growing up as a teenager, and it would always be the older voters that would be looked after, because stereotypically they would be the ones that go out and vote. Young people stereotypically don't, therefore you would be ignored. And I think it speaks to a generation, really, millennials, Gen Z, that feel like they've been, shafted, to put it politely, over the last 30 years, 40 years, and maybe even longer. I don't know about the tax-paying element. I think you won't get a lot of that. We do live in sort of the influencer economy, though, and you will get more teenagers with these online influencer platforms, setting up businesses, entrepreneurs. The influencer economy is worth about £5 billion into this country. So I think you'll get a lot of that, and people potentially employing people. Whether it will tilt things towards Labour, I don't care about that. I've always thought this is probably the right thing to do. And it's the same argument I would have with Labour people who said we can't have PR, because if we'd have had that in 2015, it would have been UKIP with 80 MPs. And you don't do things to benefit yourselves. You do things because it's the right thing, and it's up to you to offer something to those voters across all different age sectors.
What policies can the Labour Party offer young people? The right to vote is one thing, but the will to vote, getting people out there is key. What can they offer voters? And I'll tell you why I say that, because there has been a dramatic swing to the political right across mainland Europe. We saw this in the French elections, in Sweden, in Denmark, in Germany, and they framed it off as a lack of affordable housing and safety because of uncontrolled immigration. You can't ever afford to get on the property ladder, and that's because of immigration. And that completely reset the electoral landscape across the electoral bloc in mainland Europe. And if that's the case, if the messaging is repeated here, the Labour Party can't deliver on that, but Nigel Farage probably could.
Quite possibly, because we live in an era of populism on both left and right. We've seen it on the other side of the Atlantic with Bernie Sanders and the rise of Zoran Mandami in New York, who's likely going to be the next mayor. We've obviously seen it in Israel and elsewhere towards the right, and Donald Trump. And I think that's the other thing. We saw a poll earlier in the week where a proposed new party from Jeremy Corbyn and Zara Sultana would get about 15%, and Labour would drop to 15%. And I think people, young people in particular, I mean, myself and probably you as well, feel such a sense of hopelessness that people are willing to try alternatives outside of that establishment type two-party system. So I think you'll probably see it on both sides because people want better than what they've got at the moment, and who can blame them in a big way?
Catherine, you've got a kid this age. I've got a kid this age, and I know full well they don't watch mainstream television even when we're on it. You know, they're getting their information now from social media. They're getting it from alternative sources. There's a huge mistrust of the mainstream media. To reach them, you've got to be in the area where they are. That is TikTok, places like that, Instagram, whether we like it or not. If they're effectively going to contribute to getting these people to get out and vote, they need to completely rethink their strategy. And I put it to you that a lot of the established parties are just very leaden-footed on this.
Well, yes, and quite often I look at videos on X of the Prime Minister with world leaders, very stirring music, etc., etc. That is not going to cut it with 16 and 17-year-olds, whereas Nigel Farage doing the thing about milk or whatever it is, bizarrely is really, really able to cut through. We saw it in America, didn't we, when Donald Trump's son Bannon said to him, look, Dad, you've got to do these podcasts, you've got to get, you know, the bro vote. And he really cut through with young men. So it'll be very interesting to see. But talking about young people feeling disaffected, I completely agree, and with very good reason, because policy has been skewed for decades for older people with assets, with money, and that has been horrendous for young people. But the bottom line is politicians do this because older people go out and vote, younger people do not go out and vote. So you might give vote to 16, 17-year-olds, but how do you get across to younger people you need to vote if you want to be considered?
You've got to bribe them. You've got to bribe them with things like tuition fees and all the rest of it. Jeremy Corbyn, to his credit, did very, very well on that front back in 2017. You've got to directly put policies to them. It's got to make them get off their backsides and go out and vote. Huge challenge ahead, guys. A fascinating conversation. Matthew Talbot, Catherine Forster, great start to the show. And moving on, getting back to that huge story, nearly 7,000 Afghan migrants relocated to Britain would not have been eligible for asylum except for the fact that their personal details were leaked by the MOD. Now, without proper vetting, huge concerns have been raised around the issue of women's safety. Let's speak now with the Deputy Director of the Women's Safety Initiative, Anna McGovern. Anna, welcome back to the show. Always value your opinions, I sincerely do. I thought of you this morning when I looked at the figures coming through, and you and I have spoken in the past about the nationality most likely to commit sex crimes per capita in Britain or Afghanistan is 22 times more likely. And I put it to you, do you feel that women's safety has been compromised by the Ministry of Defence simply letting in thousands of invetted men from that precise country?
Yes, I think it is. I think it's a complete betrayal to women and girls. We see time and time again that their safety is being compromised. And I put it to them, you know, when will we prioritise the needs of Britain first? It feels like women and girls just time and time again are being let down by this. And working at the Women's Safety Initiative, we're an organisation that exposes the dangers of uncontrolled immigration. It gives women a voice to share their stories. And I've spoken to so many women who have different stories about where they felt unsafe or have been victims of crime directly as a result of this. And I truly think that something needs to be done because this is just getting completely out of control.
And, you know, when you raise those perfectly valid concerns, backed up by the data, now facts aren't racist, they're just facts. They might be uncomfortable facts, but they are facts. You're often chastised for it. But I think you're reaching a moment now with your movement, with your initiative, where the facts are simply too great to ignore. And I put it to you, if Afghanis are putting compensation claims in against the state for £1 billion, what about if women are raped by any of these individuals? They've been completely betrayed by the state.
Yeah, exactly. And they don't have the same cultural view of women as we do in this country, for one. So this is something that is going to directly put women and girls in danger. So what we do is, again, we raise awareness of the data, the statistics, we share these stories. And I think more people are starting to realise the consequences of these actions and how much this has gone completely out of hand. And I know for, you know, again, for the women that I've spoken to, they feel that their safety has been compromised. They feel like they can't trust the government in the policies that continue to, disregard their safety entirely. And we're hearing so many sound bites as well from the government where they say they're going to clamp down on immigration. But then you see stories like this come out, and just time and time again, women and girls are being let down, and it's just enough is enough. Something needs to be done.
OK, Anna McGovern, thanks for joining us as the Deputy Director of the Women's Safety Initiative. Back to studio, Matthew Torbett, quick response to you there. Now, nobody is saying that anybody and everybody coming over from Afghanistan is a potential criminal. Nobody's saying that. But the point is, we simply don't know who these individuals are. They come from a country that's ostensibly a lawless patriarchy, let's be frank, and they're being dumped on communities. Surely British women have a right to be concerned, and they deserve to be listened to.
I wouldn't even just say British women. I think we all should be concerned because you don't know who these people are. I think a lot of the stuff this week has been a lot of noise and distraction. I think the key thing for me is who is responsible. We know somebody who is responsible. And the wider thing is, why has nobody been sacked for this? This is let down. We've all had bad days at work, Martin. I've never sent an email that's cost 850 million quid and meant that loads of people have had to come. And the bigger horror is the fact that London is spending £4 million a day on temporary accommodation because we have a homelessness and housing crisis. That is only going to be exacerbated by having, because of this email, having to take even more people.
Matthew Torbett, I think you're exactly right. Thank you once again for joining us on the show. Now, still to come, we'll be crossing live to Hertfordshire, where Sir Keir Starmer is holding a press conference with the German Chancellor Friedrich on a new migration deal. That's up next. Mr. Merz with me, Martin Daubney on GB News, Britain's News Channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Dubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Okoye, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens. Opinion and debate. And of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning
from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact is Trump made a good start. No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Your time is 3:30 with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, hopes of the government securing a deal to deport grooming gang rapists to Pakistan in exchange for an end to the ban on Pakistan Airlines have been dashed. Well, GB News' national reporter Charlie Peters joins me now. Charlie, this airport, this line was a huge political hot potato. Pakistan wanted it reopened. Britain wanted to send rapists back in return. What's the very latest?
Well, Martin, last month we revealed that at a delegation led by David Lammy, the Foreign Secretary to Pakistan earlier this year, one of the key issues for the British side to get over the line was their determination to deport a pair of rapists in Rochdale, Adil Khan and Carrie Ralph, who were convicted in 2012, subsequently stripped of their British nationality, but have still not been deported. Over 13 years later, Martin, one of them still works as a takeaway driver in Greater Manchester and has even recently expanded his home in Pakistan, a house, it appears, he does not want to be deported back to. So at that meeting that we described last month, we revealed that when that determination was put forward by Hamish Falconer and David Lammy, the Pakistani side said, look, we can be open to the deportation, but if and only if you allow our flag carrier to return flights to Britain. Now, for the last 5 years, that's not been possible due to safety concerns. The Civil Aviation Authority and the Department for Transport have limited that agreement. That's now changed. As of yesterday, it's reacquired its licence to fly to and from Britain, a highly profitable route for the flag carrier of Pakistan. However, that now means that one of the big bargaining chips on the table for the British ministers pushing for those deportations, and it's not just those two, Martin. As you know, there are so many other dual national or even sole national offenders from Pakistan in this form of exploitation. That takes that bargaining chip off the table, which has led to a lot of critics last night asking, what have the government got left? What can they do to ensure that happens? We know it's a big priority for Labour ministers. Paul Ward, the Rochdale MP, elected last year, we know he's very keen on this deportation taking place. But last night we heard from Rupert Lowe, the independent MP for Great Yarmouth, and also Robbie Moore, a Tory from Keighley, who also said that more should be done to enforce those deportations. Martin, they told me that they don't want some sort of deal to take place. They just think the deportations should happen.
Yeah.
And if Pakistan don't agree, then there are measures that this government can take, including the freezing of foreign aid. Why is foreign aid being given to a country that won't accept the deportation of abusers? And also the freezing of visas. Tens of thousands of Pakistani nationals came to Britain last year on working and study visas. So those MPs and many others are saying that there is an opportunity on the table for the government to take if they want to take it and push this further.
And once again, it seems to me that Britain is giving everything away and not getting a great deal in return. Charlie Peters, thanks as always for holding a spotlight onto this vital story. Thank you very much. Now, speaking for the Foreign Office and the Department for Transport, a government spokeswoman told GB News this. Decisions on delisting states and air carriers from the UK Air Safety List are an independent process overseen by the UK Air Safety Committee. And following close engagement with the Pakistan Civil Aviation Authority over several months, the committee has judged that necessary safety improvements have been made since its original decision and has decided to remove Pakistan and its air carriers from that list. Now, while we wait for the Prime Minister Keir Starmer and the German Chancellor Friedrich Merz to take to the stage to announce that new treaty that's been signed earlier today, let's talk through some of the details with GBNews political correspondent Catherine Forster here in Westminster. Catherine, all eyes now on the podium. We're waiting for the two leaders to show up. What are we expecting to be revealed today? Top of the shopping list for the United Kingdom, of course, is to try and clamp down on people smuggling and, of course, Germany, a key hub there.
Yes, indeed. So this treaty, the first UK-Germany treaty since the Second World War, was signed a little bit earlier, and we will hear some of the details shortly. But yes, a crackdown on smuggling gangs in Germany. Amazingly, at the moment, it isn't illegal in Germany to facilitate people smuggling, but we know
that's
that
crazy.
the boats... It's mind-blowing, isn't it? But the boats that are, brought across Europe are often assembled and stored in Germany. Now, there was already an agreement, I have to say, we've heard this before, with Germany, and we're told that they will make it a criminal offence by the end of the year. So, look, that is something. It's a part of the puzzle that's not going to change.
We are now crossing live to Keir Starmer and Friedrich Merz.
So thank you for introducing us. And good afternoon, everybody. It's a real pleasure to be here, to be back here, and to welcome Chancellor Merz to be alongside me at Airbus here today. I'm always amazed at this place when I come to visit. It's not my first visit, but thank you again for showing us the amazing work that you do here. This is one of the most cutting-edge facilities in Europe, home to the ExoMars rover, designed with German expertise and built right here in Stevenage. You are driving innovation in defence and space technology and making us all safer and leading us into the future. And this is the heart of what brings Friedrich and I together. We see the scale of the challenges our continent faces today, and we intend to meet them head on. But we also see the scale of the opportunities. So we have a shared resolve to shape this new era with new leadership. The UK and Germany side by side, delivering growth and security and delivering for working people. And that is why earlier today we did something genuinely unprecedented. Building on our new agreement with the EU, together we signed the Kensington Treaty, the first ever major bilateral treaty between the United Kingdom and Germany. Two great modern European nations. It's an expression of our shared aims and values. But more than that, it's a practical work plan, setting out 17 major projects where we will come together to deliver real results which will improve people's lives. So a historic treaty, a statement of intent and ambition. And we intend to do, amongst other things, as leading NATO powers in Europe, committing not only to our mutual defence, but also to maximise the benefits of our defence spending in the shape of more jobs, more growth and more security. Under this treaty, we will bring our industries together to boost defence exports by billions of pounds, and will speed up collaboration on high-tech weapons and equipment, strengthening NATO and keeping our people safe. Our economic links already support 500,000 British jobs. So under this treaty, we will go further with e-gate access for frequent business travellers. I know that's something very popular here. A direct rail link and a new UK-Germany business forum to boost investment. Starting today with new investments in the UK worth over £200 million. We're also deepening collaboration on science and innovation, supporting great jobs like those here at Airbus. and we're delivering new infrastructure projects, including in the North Sea energy, to produce power that is cheaper, greener, and more secure. Crucially, we're also working together on illegal migration. And I want to thank Friedrich for his leadership on this, pledging decisive action to strengthen German law this year so that small boats being stored or transported in Germany can be seized, disrupting the route to the UK. And it's a clear sign that we mean business. We are coming after the criminal gangs in every way that we can. We also discussed the appalling situation in Gaza. We are both working to support efforts towards a ceasefire and also to demand the immediate unconditional release of the remaining hostages and the immediate unconditional humanitarian access that is so desperately needed to deliver aid at volume and at speed. Finally, we discussed the situation in Ukraine. Just a few days after Friedrich took office in May earlier this year, we were both in Kyiv, shoulder to shoulder with President Zelensky, during one of the toughest moments in this horrendous war. Now we're leading the work to get the best kit to Ukraine as fast as possible. We'll keep pushing this forward together with the US and other allies, because ultimately our security starts in Ukraine. So this is a partnership with a purpose. I think it illustrates what our work on the international stage is all about, building the foundations of stability across our continent that make us safer, boost our economy, and deliver change for our people. It's about delivering results, and that's what we're working towards. And in a dangerous world, we do this together. So thank you, Friedrich, for your partnership and your friendship. And over to you.
Thank you, Honourable Prime Minister, dear Keir. Ladies and gentlemen, first of all, let me say that I'm really proud and happy to be here today and to enjoy your hospitality. Many thanks to the Airbus team, and many thanks for joining us this afternoon. This is, as Keir said, really an historic day. And let me turn into German. We are really on the way to a new chapter. Wir schlagen heute ein neues Kapitel auf der deutsch-britischen Beziehungen. Wir antworten gemeinsam auf die großen neuen Herausforderungen unserer Zeit, in der wir leben. Großbritannien hat zu meinem persönlichen großen und anhaltenden Bedauern die Europäische Union verlassen. Russland rüttelt an der europäischen Sicherheitsarchitektur. Und die transatlantischen Beziehungen verändern sich, so wie lange nicht gesehen.
Far-reaching transformation like we've not seen for a very long time. And it is under these new conditions that it is our aim to secure the freedom, the security and the prosperity of the people of both our countries. That is really the agreement both of us have signed up to. The Prime Minister and I signed the UK-German Friendship Treaty today. We call it the Kensington Treaty, and the reason for that is a very simple one. We signed it in the V&A Museum, which happens to be located in Kensington in London. And that venue had been chosen quite carefully. The union of Queen Victoria and her German-born husband, Prince Albert, lasted a lifetime and was a happy one. I trust that is to be taken as a good omen for our treaty. And that treaty shall shape our relations for many decades and years to come. Security is the thread running through the treaty. We aim to make our contribution together, a contribution to protect and to defend the Euro-Atlantic area. Ultimately, this means that we assure each other that we're going to assist one another in case of an armed attack. And we do this in line with our commitments to NATO. However, I believe that we have to view the treaty in a broader context. Germany is linked with France through the Élysée Treaty, and in 2019 we adapted that treaty and called it the Treaty of Aachen. The United Kingdom and France are linked by the Lancaster House treaties. These agreements are complementary, thus they complement each other, and therefore it is no coincidence that I happen to be here a week after the state visit of the French President to London, Emmanuel Macron, that is. I will host Emmanuel Macron next week in Berlin, and in autumn we will have the Franco-German Council of Ministers in France. I've given those dates because they demonstrate that the E3, Great Britain, France and Germany, are converging in their positions on foreign policy, on security policy, on migration policy, but also on economic policy issues. However, this dynamic is never exclusive in nature. We're always bearing in mind Poland, Italy and the other, also smaller European partners in whatever decision we take. The new treaty is meant to change something out there. And this is why we agreed an action plan with lighthouse projects today. In the area of security and defense policy, we're building on the Trinity House Agreement of October 2024, not that long ago actually that it was agreed. Together we are developing conventional standoff weapons and uncrewed systems across all the domains, the air, the sea and the land. This strengthens our deterrence position. We want to ensure that the North Sea is better protected against hybrid threats, and we're working along the eastern flank of NATO, cooperating closely and coordinating closely regarding military support for Ukraine. And you can look also to the economic cooperation. It indicates the innovative strength of our cooperation. It is here in Stevenage that production is being made in the interest of all of us. It strengthens our defense capability in Europe. But we're doing more than just talk about security and defense. What we've agreed with will generate new growth. British and German companies are innovative, efficient and strong. Together they can even better leverage their strengths. In the field of energy policy, we aim to benefit from the opportunities that future-oriented industrial cooperation will open up, and we want to strengthen people-to-people contacts. For me personally, it's been very important, and I say this as I see so many young trainees here next to us. We want to enhance the mobility of children and youth. I believe that it is here that the impact of Brexit has been painfully evident in the past years, and the greater my pleasure that the United Kingdom has accepted to once again introduce the so-called collective list for school travellers that will facilitate the exchange of school classes without a passport or visa. And last but not least, research, technology and innovation. They are on our agenda too. We're providing new impulses, academic partnerships, scientific partnerships, improving our excellence in that area. We want to ensure that there will be more attractive conditions for scientists, academics and students in the future, allowing them to stay in Great Britain. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, today's visit also offered us the opportunity to once again talk about Ukraine. President Trump took a very important initiative on Monday. They expressed their readiness to provide weapons to Ukraine, which will be purchased and paid for by European partners. Germany wants to make an important contribution here. Of course, we have to discuss the details with our partners as quickly as possible, and we need to have clarity as how the United States will replace the weapons systems that the Europeans will transfer to Ukraine. All of that will increase the pressure on Putin to finally negotiate about peace. Europe and the United States, that is clear, are pulling in the same direction here. I would like to conclude with good news. Today is a special day also because we're celebrating the anniversary of Anita Laska-Wallfisch. She survived the horrors of the Holocaust because she played in the Women's Orchestra of Auschwitz. For many years now, she's worked tirelessly, standing up for freedom, democracy and humanity. It is here in London that she's celebrating her 100th birthday today. We would like to congratulate her But more than that, we thank her for the untiring work she has done over the last decades in order to keep alive the memory of the horrors of the Holocaust and to remind us time and again and to urge us time and again not to relent in our efforts to live peacefully with our neighbours in Europe. And Keir, yes, you made the point. Actually, this is quite amazing, you know, that over the last decades or so, we haven't had such an initiative like the one we're here to sign, that we haven't had a UK-German friendship treaty. And therefore, I would like to thank the previous government which has taken this initiative and engaged in the preparatory work, allowing us, the government in office now, to conclude the negotiations in record time. And it is here that in 2025 we for the first time ever have concluded such a treaty on friendship and bilateral cooperation between the United Kingdom of Great Britain, Northern Ireland and the Federal Republic of Germany. This is truly a historic day, and I feel honoured to be here as the German Chancellor today with the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom signing this treaty. We're not doing it for the benefit of the two of us. We do it for the benefit of both our countries and above all for you. And I address myself especially to the young people here. We want to provide a good perspective to you in this Europe of ours that has to continue to grow together, especially between Germany and the United Kingdom. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Friedrich. We'll now take a number of questions. I'm going to start with Beth Rigby from Sky News. Beth.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Beth Rigby, Sky News. Prime Minister, on Ukraine, President Trump has signalled he's prepared to sell more weapons to allies to send to Ukraine. The Chancellor just referenced that, including Patriot missile systems. Will the UK be involved, and how much of a game changer will this be? And I need to ask you a domestic question, I'm afraid. In 1997, when 47 MPs voted against Tony Blair's welfare plans, not a single one had the whip removed. He, like you, had a massive majority, but unlike you, he just didn't feel the need to punish MPs. Why are you so rattled by this? Doesn't it look weak? And to the Chancellor, if I may, on illegal migration, you're planning to stop people smugglers using warehouses to store boats, which is very welcome. The French have agreed a trial of a one-in, one-out solution. But aren't Britain's problems being exacerbated by European Union failing to properly police its borders? And aren't you also hurting politically at home because of this? And just quickly on Ukraine, do you think President Trump... I know, I know, sorry. Do you think President Trump is finally seeing President Putin for who he really is? And how much is that going to help Kyiv? Thank you so much. Thank you.
Beth, let me take your two first. On the question of Ukraine, obviously we've been working with our allies and with the US for a very long time now, but particularly intensely in recent weeks, to get to the position we're in now, where the President has made it absolutely clear that he wants Putin to move, and backing that up with capability, both military capability, as it were, but also economic as well. That is really important, and we are discussing it closely. We had a long discussion about it. Today we discuss it almost every time we meet. And we are working together on that. Last week, of course, we had the Coalition of the Willing meeting, where we had US representation there, particularly on the question of sanctions. So we are working hard with the US on this. And I think this shows the strength of Germany, France and the UK working so closely together with other allies in Europe, but also working very closely with the US. On the domestic question, look, we were elected in to change this country for the better. And that means we've got to carry through that change, and we've got to carry through reforms, because we inherited a broken economy and broken public services. No government has inherited both of those ever before, and I'm determined that we will change this country for the better for millions of working people. And I'm not going to be deflected from that. Therefore, we had to deal with people who repeatedly break the whip, because everyone was elected as a Labour MP on the manifesto of change, and everybody needs to deliver as a Labour government. This is about what we're doing for the country, and that's why I'm so determined to press forward with the reforms and the change that we need to bring about. Thank you very much. Friedrich.
Thank you for brief questions. Have we brought enough time for today? And so I'm free. I have no other meeting today. No, zuerst zur Ukraine.
Let me respond to the question regarding Ukraine first. I'm very grateful indeed that President Trump once again expressed his readiness in the past 2 days to continue to assist Ukraine by providing weapons. Over the last few days, we reached an agreement making sure that from the European continent new Patriot systems would be supplied to Ukraine and that these will then be replaced by the United States because we too have to preserve and maintain our defense capabilities. So I take it that the defense ministers will be reaching arrangements as to the logistics side of things these hours as we stand here, so as to make good on what the President of the United States promised. Now, as far as migration policy is concerned, this government, my government, has taken another step after the previous government having taken the first 2 steps, given the far too high numbers of migrants. Numbers are going down. In the second half of in the first quarter of 2025, we had roughly 25% less than in the same quarter last year. We have increased our efforts, but we know that border controls only have the necessary effect for a limited period of time. We don't want to damage the Schengen area, the single market. We don't want to damage the single market either, the freedom of movement of goods and of persons and of services and transportation. Insofar, I personally try to do what I can in order to ensure that we can agree on common and better European regulations to better protect the external borders of the European Union. And I talked about this to the Prime Minister this morning. Our objective is to closely cooperate with the United Kingdom. The cooperation between the United Kingdom and France that was agreed last week has to be complemented by an agreement that we aim to achieve between the 3 of us, UK, Germany, France. We want to stand up and drastically reduce illegal migration in Europe. We are on a good path, but we haven't reached the target yet.
That last answer, if I may, because I'm really grateful to the Chancellor for leading on this in relation to the change in German law, which is hugely important to us. As you know, we're determined to intervene at every stage of the journey that is made to bring down those that are running this vile trade. Last week, we obviously dealt with what's happening in the north of France in relation to maritime tactics, and our ability to return people through the returns agreement that we agreed last week to France. But for a long time, I've been very concerned about the fact that engines in particular, but component parts of the boats that are being used are travelling through and being stored in Germany, but they can't be seized because the law didn't accommodate for a country which had left the EU and therefore needed to be amended. And I am very grateful for the Chancellor, and we've discussed this at great length on a number of occasions, is now going to change the law, introduce the necessary legislation so that we can intervene in that place. And that is the kind of leadership and cooperation that is necessary if we're going to deal with this issue. And it should be seen, as the Chancellor says, alongside the work we did with France last week. And I endorse everything that was said about the strength of the E3 relationship. Germany, France and the UK leading not just on defence and security in Europe, but on many other issues as well, most of which are reflected in the treaty that we signed this morning. Thank you very much. Can I go to Anne from Politico? Anne, please.
Hello, Anne McElvoy from Politico. Prime Minister, Herr Bundeskanzler. What difference, Prime Minister, do you think we will see in terms of the war in Ukraine from the arrangements and agreements that you've met in the last few days? There's a perception sometimes that these things are going to take years and years. If I think about something like the plan for a super Taurus, rockets and other weaponry, these are going to take years and years. And have you been putting pressure on your guest to actually deliver Taurus at the moment into the battlefields of Ukraine? And also with that in mind, before I switch over to the Bundeskanzler, what about perhaps raising pressure through economic sanctions on Russia? And is that something you've been both advocating for with the US President? Ich füge vielleicht gerade hinzu, Herr Bundeskanzler, Sie haben ja doch versprochen, Taurus zu liefern, als Sie nicht im Amt waren. Ist es noch nicht passiert? Würden Sie sich jetzt anders überlegen? Sorry, and I will switch back to English just for the fun of it and say, es gibt heute, there's another remarkable birthday today, which we might take note of, which is Angela Merkel, your predecessor, and sometimes Parteifreundin. Did you send congratulations?
And let me start with the question about the practical application and deliverability. I think the treaty we signed this morning should be seen as first and foremost a work plan that we can operate to straight away in terms of our cooperation, particularly on defence and security, and the discussion that we've been having for some time between ourselves, which is that as each of our countries and other countries in Europe scale up their defence spending, it is important that that isn't just seen as a spending issue in isolation. It has to be seen as an opportunity for us to coordinate and cooperate together in procurement, in production, etc. So this is a very meaningful and changed and new forging together of what we will do on defence and security, and we can start that straight away. The Trinity House agreement that we had was really important, and we signed that last year, so there is already work ongoing. It is true that under the treaty there's longer term work as well, as you would expect, but it sets in place the way of working that we can operate and are operating to increasingly as we speak, because I think it is important to appreciate just how closely our three countries now are working on these issues. We all see this as a responsibility, but also an opportunity for Europe to step up on defence and security and work more closely together, and that's enshrined in the treaty that we signed this morning. Thank you. Friedrich.
Wir haben über die militärische Unterstützung
We discussed military support to Ukraine in great detail, of course, not only about air defense, but also capabilities for Ukraine to use deep strike systems to better defend itself, or rather, as we call them, long-range fires. Very shortly, very soon, the Ukraine will receive additional support in that regard, also through industrial cooperation that we have started with Ukraine. We're not going to talk publicly about the details here, but the Ukraine will be much better positioned and use these systems and get the support of us with regard to those systems in the weeks and months to come. And I very much hope that the American administration will work with Congress in order to take those decisions that have been prepared for a couple of weeks and months now. We are in touch with a number of senators, Keir Starmer and I, and we do hope very much that this will lead to the respective decision on the part of the American administration. Thank you for pointing out to me that Angela Merkel is celebrating her birthday today. Of course, I sent her my best wishes. And should she become as old as Anita Lasker-Wallfisch today, I will congratulate her publicly. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll go now to Michael Fisher from DPA.
Yeah. Thank you, Prime Minister. Herr Bundeskanzler, eine Frage an Sie zunächst nochmal zu den Patriots. Wenn Sie sagen, in den nächsten
When you say that in the next few hours an agreement will be reached, as you see it, how quickly can this actually take place, the delivery of the Patriots? How many will be delivered, and which are the countries that will participate except Germany?
To what extent are you both willing to buy weapons in the US to deliver to Ukraine, even beyond air defense? And since we are here at Airbus Defence and Space, one question to weapons exports in general, which is part of the treaty. Did you talk about the export of Eurofighter Typhoon? And are you both ready to deliver them to Turkey?
Yeah. You first?
No, you go first.
Yeah. Okay. Also, Herr Fischer, nur
Well,
damit
Mr.
das
Fischer, just to be clear, I didn't say that this decision will happen in the next few hours, but the defense ministers are negotiating as we stand here also with regard to the details concerning the delivery. So how can we make sure that Ukraine is being supplied with the necessary systems? These systems have to be transported there, they have to be set up. It's not a matter of hours, but perhaps a question of days or weeks. But we are it's a concrete thing. We have not, the readiness has been expressed on the side and the part of the Americans to engage with us in that regard. As far as export authorizations are concerned, we have not had a decision yet, but we are on the path towards a good decision that will lead or should make possible such an export license. We will have to wait and see. I'm not going to speak about what countries we are thinking of in that regard.
In relation to Ukraine, obviously we're working with allies on the provision of capability. We have been for some considerable period throughout this conflict. And the backup, if you like, that sits behind that to make sure that any capability is effective in Ukraine. And that's why we've done, amongst other things, a lot of leading work on the training of those who are in Ukraine, those that are going to the front line in relation to the capability that is being provided. So the two marry up together, and we'll continue to do so. And this is now an intense period as we go through the remaining days of this 50-day period, and it has to be coupled with economic pressure and the sanctions that will be necessary if Putin doesn't come to the table. President Zelensky has shown months ago now his willingness to come to the table in pursuit of lasting peace. It's now for Putin to come to the table. And I think that's very clear from what President Trump has said in recent days. On the question of exports, we discussed this today at some length, and that we intend to have export campaigns more jointly together, coordinated together. That is a good thing for both of our countries, and it's a good thing for Europe and beyond. And so we have not only discussed that, but also begun to take the steps to make sure that this is much more coordinated, much more joined up, and much more cooperative. And again, all of this is further evidence of the closeness of the relationship as it now is between Germany and the UK, and a statement of intent about how we intend to work going forward. Thank you very much. And I think I've got Arne from Bloomberg.
Ja, thank you. Herr Bundeskanzler, eine Frage zum
Chancellor, a question regarding the EU budget, the proposal submitted by Brussels yesterday. The impression we've gained is that you have felt insufficiently informed in advance, so that things, or rather decisions, the proposal came as a surprise for you. Do you see any chance whatsoever for a compromise on the basis of the proposal that has been submitted by the Commission President? Or do we foresee a major conflict here between Berlin and Brussels and possibly other capitals in Europe?
Just asked the Chancellor about the EU budget, so you are probably...
There we go, that's a press conference there at the Airbus plant in Stevenage in Hertfordshire. Keir Starmer and the German Chancellor Friedrich Merz. Keir Starmer confirmed that the two countries have signed a historic treaty to boost ties on trade, security and migration. Now, it's been called the Kensington Treaty, and it's the first agreement of its kind between the UK and Germany, and the deal, they said, would build the foundations of stability across the continent. Let's take a short listen to what the Prime Minister has just said.
Actually, we're also working together on illegal migration. And I want to thank Friedrich for his leadership on this, pledging decisive action to strengthen German law this year so that small boats being stored or transported in Germany can be seized, disrupting the route to the UK. And it's a clear sign that we mean business. We are coming after the criminal gangs in every way that we can.
Yeah, let's get some reaction to that now. Back here in the studio, I'm joined by GBNews' political correspondent Catherine Forster and also by the former editor of Labour List, Peter Edwards. Welcome to you both, Catherine Forster. Let's start with what is being painted as a victory for Great Britain. It might come as a surprise to GBNews viewers and listeners to learn that it currently isn't even illegal to store dinghies, illegal dinghies and their engines in Germany. And by the end of the year, so it could be 6 months down the road, finally they will sweep into action and stop this happening. Is this really a victory for Britain?
I think people will be quite shocked at that. And yes, it will only be by the end of the year. And also, this has actually been announced before, I think, with Scholz. I had a bit of sort of feeling of deja vu watching this because I was at a similar press conference with the former Prime Minister Rishi Sunak and the former German Chancellor Olaf Scholz April last year. Similar talk about defence cooperation, security, energy. But of course, since then, everything's changed because Donald Trump has come in. We are going to spend vastly more on defence. We have no choice in that. And also the Brexit factor. Of course, we've heard Merz saying the impact of Brexit has been painfully evident these past years. Now, we've seen Labour did say very clearly in the manifesto a reset with Europe. We had the state visit with Macron last year. They want to get closer. They feel that we need to get closer to our allies in Europe, partly because of what Russia are doing, partly because of Donald Trump, partly because they believe it's in our economic interest.
OK, hold that thought, because we've got some significant breaking news for you now. The Afghan asylum scandal gets worse by the moment. Listen to this, because the details of more than 100 Britons, including spies and special forces, were included in that massive MOD data leak that resulted in thousands of Afghans being secretly relocated to the United Kingdom. Now, defence sources say that details of MI6 spies, SAS and special forces personnel were also included in that damning spreadsheet after they had endorsed Afghans who had applied to be brought to the UK. Just to repeat that, and please take a moment, let this sink in. As well as there being thousands of Afghans, now the calamity grows, because the details of more than 100 Britons, including spies and special forces, were also included in that massive MOD data leak that resulted in thousands of Afghans being secretly relocated to the United Kingdom. And defence sources say that details of MI6 spies, SAS and special forces personnel were included in that spreadsheet after they had endorsed Afghans who had applied to be brought to the UK. Catherine Forster, let's get some immediate reaction to that breaking news there. This is now, it was already one of the biggest scandals perhaps ever in recent British political history. It just got a whole lot worse.
It did just get worse. And we did know the other day there were British names on this list as well. But the fact that we're now hearing more, and people that should be so secret, whose identities are now out there, it just gets more and more horrifying. The level of incompetence, frankly, within the Ministry of Defence, the fact that nobody, as far as we can see, has lost their job about this or really taken any ownership of it. And here we are, you know, a cover-up, or the government would say, it was necessary. But we've not known about this for a long period of time. The British public in the dark. Kemi Badenoch didn't even know about this till a couple of days ago. MPs in the dark too. And it just gets worse and worse and worse. And I think back to something that Suella Braverman said in her statement yesterday at the end. Her husband has just left Reform, but she basically made a comment talking about, she said, the system that enabled this cover-up, talking about the super injunction, must be dismantled. It just adds to this feeling that so much in Britain just is not working like it should at all.
Let's be resolutely clear. MI6 spies, SAS and special forces personnel are the most cherished, valuable and important strategic assets that the United Kingdom has in any foreign battlefield. Of course, the boots on the ground are paramount, but this is their safety, their integrity is the very core essence of what the Ministry of Defence does. And this idiot, whoever's leaked this out, it's bad enough that Afghans were placed in peril, but to learn that our top brass forces are also on that list, exposed to the Taliban, it's unforgivable.
It is. I would just say I don't think it was a leak. I think it was entirely accidental, but we know that it came from a Royal Marine. I don't think ultimately it's that soldier's fault. Why was he in a position where this was possible? I think responsibility is much higher. And we know that Sir Gwyn Jenkins, who was director of Special Forces at the time, there was some discussion about whether he should resign. He said absolutely not. Well, he's now been made head of the Navy. So not only have people not been held accountable, it feels like some people have been almost rewarded.
OK, Catherine Forster. Well, if you're just joining us at the top of this hour, just to remind you, we just had a joint press conference with Germany's Chancellor Friedrich Merz and Sir Keir Starmer. He confirmed that the two countries have signed an historic treaty to boost ties on trade, security and migration. And known as the Kensington Treaty, it's the first agreement of its kind between UK and Germany. And the deal, they said, will build the foundations of stability across the continent. As let's take a little reminder of what our Prime Minister has just said.
Crucially, we're also working together on illegal migration. And I want to thank Friedrich for his leadership on this, pledging decisive action to strengthen German law this year so that small boats being stored or transported in Germany can be seized, disrupting the route to the UK. And it's a clear sign that we mean business. We are coming after the criminal gangs in every way that we can.
OK, well, we're back in the studio here. I'm still joined by our political correspondent, Catherine Forster, and, of course, the former editor of Labour List, Peter Edwards. And I'm also now delighted to say I'm joined by the Conservative MP for West Suffolk, Nick Timothy. Nick, welcome to the studio. That breaking news just a few moments ago in there. Not only thousands of Afghans on that MOD leak, but we've just learned MI6 spies, SAS and Special Forces personnel. This disaster just got a whole lot worse.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously a complete catastrophe, and the consequences are not just for the individuals affected, and I assume the state has put all sorts of protective measures in to look after soldiers and our spies, but obviously there have been consequences for our immigration system, and I think that is absolutely disgraceful.
Do you think somebody needs to be held accountable for this? Because we go, oh, it's human error, or these things happen. But, you know, when it gets to the point where British, you know, the most cherished assets, the most secret and treasured assets of the British military foundations are being exposed by this kind of blunder, there has to be a consequence.
Well, I mean, if these things happen, then that shows how shambolic and run down different aspects of the state are. There is no way information like this should ever be as insecure as it seems to have been. And I personally would like to know exactly how this happened and who was responsible. And yes, of course, when people do things that are as serious as this, there should be consequences.
And do you think that needs to go as far as, you know, perhaps somebody being prosecuted? I mean, you know, we hear time and time again that, oh, lessons must be learned, we won't repeat this, we'll tighten up protocol. This could be deadly.
Yeah, look, I mean, of course, protocol should be tightened. They should never have been so loose in the first place. But there should be consequences if individuals have done things that are egregiously wrong. And we know of lots of examples from the state over many years, over decades, where serious mistakes have been made, but also unprofessional lapses in judgment and things like that have happened. And there have been very little consequences for them. And that's part of the cultural problem that exists in our state and needs to be addressed.
Now, Nick Timothy, you've also joined us today because, of course, you're campaigning heavily. Very grave concerns you have around the redefinition of Islamophobia. The Labour Party pushing this through. A particular story came to light today which made this, I think, even more pertinent. There's an Islamic radio station in Bury called Salam BCR has been wrapped by Ofcom for putting out what was clearly an anti-Semitic broadcast. And in that, they said that the biggest enemies of humanity are Jews. And yet, when they were wrapped by Ofcom, they claimed it was Islamophobia. So isn't this a case, an example of how the cover of Islamophobia is even allowing blatant racists to operate in plain sight?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, our right to free speech in this country is under very serious pressure, especially as it relates to people expressing opinions or even, the state going about its duties when it relates to Islam. And we've seen two people prosecuted this year under the Public Order Act for desecrating a Quran, because now the police and prosecutors will hold them responsible for the anticipated violent reaction of others who can't deal with criticism of their beliefs. But we also have this attempt to define Islamophobia. The consultation is rigged. The working group that's trying to reach the definition hand-picked organisations who had invited to take part. It's chaired by Dominic Grieve, who's already endorsed a definition of Islamophobia from 2018, which is very controversial. And in that 2018 definition, it specifically said talking about grooming gangs is an example of Islamophobia. It explicitly said we can't talk about the history of Islam as being spread by the sword, that was the quote it used, because that's Islamophobic. And really this is an attempt to shut down any kind of conversation about anything sensitive by calling people racist.
Peter Edwards, let's bring you in. You've been sitting patiently there. Do you think it's a good idea to be changing the definition of Islamophobia where you can clearly see it could give cover to blatant anti-Semites?
To be clear, I've not been through the new definition line by line on the shameful episode at a radio station in Bury, clearly calling, I think the quote you read out was, Jews, the biggest enemies of humanity, or the Jews. That's clearly
10 days after October the 7th.
Clearly
10 days.
Anti-Semitic, clearly indefensible, and however ghastly it is, if the regulator, I don't know if the regulator did quickly, because we're approaching 2 years on from that dreadful anti-Semitic attack on the people of Israel, but the regulator has taken action, so that should give us a bit of comfort. On the wider issue, I think perhaps my starting point, Nick, might be similar. Is I'm also a churchgoer, I'm a Christian, and I think perhaps like Nick, I believe that there is a right for robust criticism, and certainly for Britain's history, Christianity has been the majority faith, and satirists and comics going all the way back to Jane Austen in a more gentle way have satirised the church, and there is completely a place for that, and there is no right not to be offended. But I think Nick and I, where I perhaps part company is a couple of recent criminal trials, and I looked up what the judge said where someone had been convicted after burning a Quran. If you're setting fire to a holy text in a public place, the sole purpose of doing that is to cause distress to other people.
If you set fire to a Bible, do you think you'd receive a similar chastisement? I bet you that wouldn't happen.
I would hope so, because you're still setting fire to something which is dangerous. I mean, if you're setting fire to a secular book, that's still a dangerous thing to do. And if you're setting fire to a holy text, that is designed, of any faith, to cause distress to the people in that community.
This contrast actually sums up the point, right? So the reason people have been prosecuted where they've desecrated a Quran is because of the anticipated reaction of others. In fact, in the case of the man who burned the Quran outside the Turkish embassy, which was a political protest against the Turkish government, he was attacked by two men, allegedly one with a knife. Their trials are still to be held. But the judge in the case of the man who was prosecuted for burning the Quran, the judge said that you were attacked shows that your behaviour was disorderly. It turns the principles of law on their head. It blames the victim for the reaction of other people.
I agree.
And I think that is completely unacceptable.
That's a puzzling comment. To be clear, although I've seen the judge's comments, his his not summing up, but his sentencing will have gone on for 10 or 20 minutes. So it'll be much more than just the sentence you quoted. But if someone is using physical threats or harm at protests, that's obviously wrong. And I still say, if someone's setting fire to any religious text, that is wrong, and it's only designed to cause harassment.
It might be.
Nick's problem is with the logic of
it. Might be wrong. It might be offensive, but why should it be illegal? Surely we should have the right to offend. Like, it's clearly reckless endangerment of yourself to do it. There can be grave consequences for doing things like that. But he took that decision. The point is this: are we giving Islam special protection? A lot of people say that's the case.
I don't believe so, and I think, you know, as a person of faith, I want to see all faiths respected, but I'm also aware that, particularly on university campuses, there is no right not to be offended. But clearly, criticism or satire is very different to burning a religious book, and you only burn a religious book because you're trying to cause criminal harassment, distress to other folk.
OK, final word to you, Nick Timothy MP. Do you believe, as many critics do, this is the beginnings of a backdoor de facto blasphemy law in Britain?
That's exactly what it is. Because, I mean, firstly, it doesn't apply to Christianity because there is no tendency among Christians to react with violence. Now, not every Muslim would react to the burning of a Quran with violence, but we know that some people do, and that's why actions as they relate to Islam are being treated differently to others, and the inversion of the principles of law is unacceptable in the context of the Public Order Act. When we come to the definition of Islamophobia, the protagonists, the people who are pushing for this definition, keep trying to liken it to the definition of anti-Semitism, which is completely different because Jewish identity is ethnic, Islamic identity is not. It is a choice about your beliefs and your ideas, and we cannot elide protection of individuals. Individuals are rightly protected from harm, from physical harm and from discrimination. Muslims, just the same as anybody else. But they're eliding those protections with the protections of ideas from scrutiny and criticism and mockery. And in a free society, that is completely unacceptable. And that is a blasphemy law, yes.
OK, we have to leave it there. Nick Timothy, thank you very, very much. Peter Edwards, excellent as ever. Catherine Forster, also a pleasure. Thank you all. Now, still to come, GB News has received incredible footage that shows French forces handing out free drinks to illegal immigrants halfway across the channel. What next? Free baguettes and champagne? Let's face it, is it finally time to defund the French? That's next with me, Martin Daubney, on GB News, Britain's News Channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we are proud to stand for you, for the Britain you love, for the communities you live in. That's what makes us the fearless champions of Britain. Its voices and its values. Because we, at GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Dubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word. Welcome back. Your time is 4:28 with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, GB News has uncovered fresh and astonishing evidence of the way in which the French authorities are not just failing to intervene and stop migrant boat launchers, but are actively handing out life jackets and now free drinks to illegal immigrants. Now, this comes as the German Chancellor promises to make it illegal for people smugglers to operate in his country. Why isn't it illegal already? But nothing will happen anyway for at least another 6 months. Well, our Homeland Security editor Mark White joins us now. Mark, you've uncovered yet again a mountain of video evidence, the first showing a particular individual making his way from the slums of Calais to the luxury of Hotel Britannia.
Yes, this really shows just how migrants in France are living rough, often for weeks, if not months. Then they come to the UK and immediately they're put in very plush accommodation. Let's take a look at the first bit of video of a migrant deep in the jungle near Calais. So he's there, just making himself look presentable for the camera for this video. These videos, remember, are put out by the people smugglers to show the journey of these migrants, show how easy it is. He's just testing his life jacket there in the jungle, knowing that in a couple of days' time, he'll be boarding a boat bound for the UK. And we've got video of him on that boat now in the middle of the English Channel, and just off the bows of that migrant boat is the French warship, doing what the French warships always do now, which is escorting the migrant boats across the busy shipping lanes to ensure that they get to UK waters unhindered by any other vessels out there. So ensuring that they effectively have got safe passage on their way across. And to meet them at the other side, as is now also customary, is a border force vessel. There you see it, that catamaran just waiting in the central separation zone in the middle of the channel for that boat to cross over. Then the migrants were taken on board that border force vessel, and you see them now on the border force vessel heading to the UK. And just days later, here is the migrant now in his hotel. And it looks a very nice hotel too. I mean, it's always, it seems guaranteed to be a 4-star hotel that the migrants are taken to. So no complaints, it seems, about his accommodation. And as I say, this is all part of the scam, the criminal process of putting out these videos so that people around the world that might be thinking of travelling illegally to the UK know that they can do that, and can do that with relative ease.
Let's face it, Mark, it looks like he's won the lottery. And in a way, he has. He'll probably stay in Britain for God knows how long. But you've got even more evidence, Mark. It gets worse now they're dishing out refreshments in the Channel.
Yeah, well, this is of real concern because the French stand accused of enabling these small boat crossings by, as we've just seen, escorting the migrant boats across to UK waters, but also handing out life jackets and, in this case, handing out bottles of water. This is the inshore lifeboat from Berck in northern France, getting the thumbs up as they hand more bottles of water over to the migrants with whoops and hollers for the water that they've just received. And we can show you some footage filmed just this morning at Gravelines, which is near Dunkirk, and there are about 70 or so migrants there just waiting on the beach. Then they get the nod that a migrant boat is coming to pick them up. A taxi boat. We've spoken of this phenomenon in recent months. These taxi boats are assembled and set off from river tributaries just nearby, and then they make their way round to the point on the coastline to pick up the awaiting migrants. And that's why you can see them all wading into the water to get on board. And we can see that they clamber onto that small boat. They're only at this point waist deep, so they are, near enough the shoreline, we're told by the French, to be pushed back. This is the more robust tactic that we're told that the French are going to be adopting. But we keep getting told that there is no sign of that tactic being enacted. And this rigid inflatable from the French authorities, rather than actually pushing back the migrant boat, is involved in handing out those life jackets to the migrants.
Well, Mark White, they're well drilled, they're well paid, they're well organised, and now they're well refreshed, and it's well annoying. Mark White, great footage as ever. Thank you very much for joining us on the show. Now, loads more still to come between now and 5 o'clock, and it just gets worse in the Afghan scandal of the asylum seekers, because now details of British spies and special forces were included in that massive data leak that led to thousands of Afghans being secretly relocated to the UK. I'll have a veteran's reaction to that next. You will not want to miss it. But first, here's your latest news headlines with Tatiana Sanchez.
Martin, thank you. The headlines at 4:30. Personal details of spies and special forces were included in a data leak that led to thousands of Afghans being secretly relocated to the UK. Information about more than 100 Britons was contained in the breach. Sir Keir Starmer and the German Chancellor have signed a historic treaty to boost ties on trade, security and migration. The Germany's Chancellor said this afternoon, "We see the scale of the challenges our continent faces today and we intend to meet them head on."
And it's a clear sign that we mean business. We are coming after the criminal gangs in every way that we can.
The Prime Minister there, Sir Keir Starmer. 16 and 17-year-olds will be able to vote in the next general election under sweeping reforms. The changes also include automated voter registration and new IDs like UK bank cards and digital driving licences. 4 Labour MPs have been kicked out for defying the party on welfare issues. One slammed the move as petty, while Downing Street says it's all about loyalty before the summer break. Those are the latest headlines for now. More news at the top of the hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Although it's cloudy out there for many of us, it's warm and humid, and there's the chance of heavy showers in some places, although many places are escaping largely dry. The brightest skies expected for northeast Scotland, as well as some southern and southeastern parts during the rest of the afternoon and into the evening. Elsewhere, a lot of cloud cover, spells of showery rain moving through Scotland and Northern Ireland, chance of a few thundery downpours, some intense rain rates. But elsewhere, it's mostly dry as we head into the night time. Clear spells for much of England and East Wales, and feeling muggy once again. An uncomfortable night for sleeping, with temperatures holding up in the mid or even high teens. We start off Friday with a lot of cloud cover once again and some mistiness around western and southern coasts. But inland, there'll be some sunshine, a few dribs and drabs of rain for southwest England into Wales, some heavier and more persistent rain moving through North Wales, northwest England. crossing Scotland at this time. Brighter conditions following for Western Scotland and Northern Ireland, but still with a few showers. And it's going to feel a little fresher in the far northwest, but not a great deal fresher. Meanwhile, the heat and humidity continues to climb across central and southeastern parts of England. In fact, it's going to be a hot day through the Midlands, East Anglia and the southeast. High 20s, low 30s in places. That heat and humidity combining to lead to thunderstorms, particularly for northeast England. Over the North York Moors, for example, we could see some very heavy rainfall later in the day. Look at the temperatures. High 20s, low 30s in many places towards the southeast. Feeling a little fresher, as I mentioned, towards the west and the northwest. Areas of cloud then moving through, and there's the chance of some further thunderstorms moving up from northern France to become extensive across eastern parts of the UK as we begin the weekend. Further thundery showers arriving from the west later.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from GBnews.com. The A496 between Nairn and Forres is restricted due to a traffic incident. Allow extra travel time. The A470 northbound from Nantgarv to Upper Boat is closed for roadworks with diversions. In Cheshire East, a broken-down vehicle on the M6 southbound at junction 18 has closed one lane, likely to clear by 5:15. A medical emergency on the A3 southbound between A283 Milford North and A333 caused a lane restriction, expected to clear between 5 and 5:15. And on the trains, ScotRail has buses replacing trains between Partick and Anniesland Charch Yoker. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Welcome back. Time is 4:39. You're with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, just to remind you of that massive breaking news from a short moment ago, and it's this. The details of more than 100 Britons, including MI6 spies and Special Forces SAS operatives amongst them, well, they were included in that massive data leak that resulted in thousands of Afghans being secretly relocated by the United Kingdom. Just to repeat, as well as thousands of Afghans, now the most cherished British strategic assets, the SAS Special Forces, also on that list. Just when you thought the story couldn't get any worse, it did. And later in the show, I'll be joined by a furious veteran for his reaction to what is surely and rapidly becoming one of the worst political scandals in British history. But first, 5 patients have died as a result of disruption caused by junior doctor strikes, coroners have revealed. 5 people have actually died because of those strikes. Now, NHS leaders are now warning that more lives could be put at risk next week as the British Medical Association prepares for a 5-day full walkout. And NHS chiefs have now vowed to prioritise care over striking junior doctors. But is it time, finally, to outlaw doctor strikes? Well, let's have a debate now, and I'm joined by the former medical director and the chief medical officer at Bupa, Dr. Andrew Valence-Owen, and also by the former Metropolitan Police detective, great friend of the show, Peter Blexley. Let's start with you, if I first could, Dr. Valence-Owen. I put it to you, 5 deaths, all of which probably could have been avoided if junior doctors hadn't been on strike. I put it to you, the time is up. It's time to outlaw these doctor strikes and people are dying.
And I'm afraid I don't agree with you. And I do feel that what they're doing is immoral, unprofessional, holding the NHS to ransom and all those bad things. But I think the right to strike is important. And the quid pro quo, if you're going to stop strikes, is that the government or the NHS has to pay staff a reasonable wage in the first place. They can't have one side and not the other.
But the junior doctors have just had a massive strike. They just had a massive pay rise, and people have died, and they're repeating. The definition of insanity is repeating the same thing and expecting a different outcome. If people died last time, isn't that surely to happen next time?
Yeah, no, I mean they clearly are I'm horrified at the callous arrogance of these junior doctors, and there's no question about that. And many, many doctors are, and they're resigning from the BMA. But at the end of the day, I think it's going to be very difficult to just outlaw strikes of emergency services. It's been tried before. What they do need to do, though, is make it much tougher to take a strike action legally if you're in the emergency services. The BMA has been recruiting these junior doctors for nothing to get them onto their lists, but still the ballot has shown much less support for the strike this time, and therefore I think that instead of 50%, it should be a much higher percentage that they have to get through before they can go on strike legally.
OK, Peter Blexley, you've been waiting patiently there in the wings. I put it to you, the army can't go on strike, and I believe coppers can't go on strike, right, because they're a key strategic asset. Surely it's time to do the same with doctors.
Yes, you're absolutely right. Police have not been able to strike now for over 100 years because the last time that they did, chaos reigned on the streets of Britain, and it was decided that in return for some kind of paid settlement and other pension conditions, police would never go on strike again. Imagine what would have happened last year during the riots if there had been no police officers there. One can only hazard a horrific guess at how all of that may have ended, or perhaps might still be continuing. These doctors, they know that lives will be lost. They absolutely know that through their selfish, reckless action, people are going to die. That surely is a situation that cannot be permitted, and now they must look at doctors' terms and conditions and impose a fundamental law upon them that they cannot strike.
Dr. Andrew Vallance-Owen, you were nodding along there in agreement with Peter Blexley. Is there something morally just reprehensible about the notion you sign up for a profession, in Peter's case, to maintain law and order? In a doctor's case, your raison d'etre is to save lives. When that provably isn't happening, something's gone very, very badly amiss.
No, it has, and I mean there is a genuine grievance. I mean, you say they've had an uplift in their wages over a couple of years, but the figures that they show, although they're wildly exaggerated, have shown a loss of wages in real terms for many years now. And it's the same with the nurses too. And if you do it to the doctors, you'd have to do it to the nurses too. And there are huge legal issues in doing it. The key is to get them paid properly and to not have them moving on to strike. But they can't go on holding people to ransom. And the more of the clamour there is about it, the less support they get from the public, they will realise, I think, that it's just not going to work this time.
OK, Peter Blexley, final word to you. I put it to you. If thousands of Afghani asylum seekers can sue the British government to the tune of £1 billion, it could get very, very expensive for the NHS if patients can prove they died as a result of strikes.
And 5 cases have already been proven by coroners that people died precisely because of that. The learned doctor's argument that it would be difficult to do is not a reason not to do it. It's more of a reason to do it. Let's have this legislation. Let's pass it into law, and let's make sure that doctors never go on strike again.
Gentlemen, a firm but fair and balanced debate. Always a pleasure to have you both on the programme. And that is the former medical director and the chief medical officer at Bupa, Dr. Andrew Vallance-Owen, and the former Met Police Detective Peter Blexley. Gentlemen, thank you very, very much. Now, if you're in search of some holiday sun, then here is the forecast for some of the top European destinations.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Lots of hot, strong sunshine around the Mediterranean at the moment. A few showers are possible in Sicily and inland over Turkey. We may just see 1 or 2 showers. Most of the coast here dry and sunny. Much of the Greek islands also dry, fine and sunny. 1 or 2 showers through the spine of Italy, but again, the coast's dry and fine. Northern parts of Spain may see a bit more cloud and a few showers. Quite a brisk wind blowing over the Canaries, but it's going to be hot in Tenerife. Temperatures just dipping a little bit here into the weekend.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Back in 2015, Thornton and Cleveley's resident Emma Shepherd noticed the grass in her garden wasn't growing. Within months, she had to put down Alfie, one of her beloved dogs who had developed throat cancer. Just weeks later, she developed a lesion on her back, which would later be diagnosed as skin cancer. She knew then that something wasn't right.
I wasn't really aware of the history of the ICI site when I took the property. I did so much investigation. I had the ground tested with my own money. There was high levels of metals in there and some obviously cancerous carcinogenics in there. They actually nicknamed me Erin Brockovich because I was so all over it.
Last year, a joint investigation was launched by the Environment Agency and the local council. That was following the discovery of PFOA, a man-made chemical that potentially causes cancer. Both parties told GB News they are now working together on this matter, whilst the company under investigation for the potential release of the substance had this to say. AGC Chemicals Europe sets the highest standards for itself and takes its commitments to the local community and to the environment extremely seriously. They added that they voluntarily phased out the use of PFOA in the UK by early 2012. Release of the substance was within the permits held by AGC Chemicals Europe at the time and also UK legislation in place at the time. And yet, 2 months ago, residents within a kilometre of the site received this letter from the council, advising them not to consume anything grown in their gardens due to potential PFOA contamination.
GB News, the People's Channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There, you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Time's 10 to 5. With me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, a BBC executive has allegedly told staff that the Hamas government is different from its military. Take a listen.
I think it's really important that we are clear that Abdullah's father was a deputy agriculture minister and therefore, was a member of the Hamas-run government, which is different to being part of the military wing of Hamas.
Well, she made the comments in a meeting intended to reassure staff after the catastrophic failure of broadcasting the documentary Gaza, How to Survive a War Zone. And now she did not suggest that the documentary should not have been pulled. And before we get going, a spokesperson for the Beeb said this: the BBC constantly makes clear on our programmes and platforms that Hamas are a prescribed terrorist organisation by the UK government and others. We are also clear that we need to describe to our audiences the complexities of life in Gaza, including within the structure of Hamas, which has run the civilian functions of Gaza. Deborah Turnus was answering a question about how we describe the father of the narrator in our war zone film. She did not imply that Hamas are not a single terrorist organisation. That's out the way. Let's get to the fun bit. I'm joined by the former BBC Current Affairs producer, John Mayer. John, welcome to the show. Once again, the BBC utterly tone deaf on reality here. Let's face it, it's like saying Adolf Hitler's, agricultural minister, he wasn't really a Nazi, he was a farmer. This is tone deaf, and once again, it's the BBC not understanding what the world is actually about.
Is GB News tone deaf on Gaza?
I ask myself, when are you going to ask the question, when are international journalists going to be allowed into Gaza to report it
You said
properly?
the same thing the last time you're on, John Mayer. You're immediately deflecting and blaming Israel. Answer the question. Your chief of news doesn't think that a senior executive in Hamas is actually the same thing as Hamas, when it clearly is.
The BBC has just been sued successfully for saying that Jerry Adams is a member of the IRA, as you well know. So we had all this 20 years ago when we were conflating Sinn Féin and the IRA. Maybe rightly, maybe wrongly. Who knows? But look, the BBC is not bombing Gaza. Israel is bombing Gaza.
The BBC is bombing itself in terms of its reputation with every soundbite that comes out of executive mouth. And you're doing it again, John. You're deflecting this onto Israel. Look in the mirror and admit the BBC is completely wrong again.
No, I won't. I mean, she had an unfortunate choice of words. And by the way, if you read the comments in the Daily Telegraph, she's not a BBC lifer. She's only been there for 3 years. She comes from ITN and from American TV. So for people to say, oh, she's schooled in the BBC, she's not. Look. All terrorist
so the BBC's head of news isn't BBC.
No, she's not BBC born and bred, which is what you guys are all saying. That she's North London woke. She's not. She's ITV. She's American TV, and she's come from a different world, and she comes from a world, a journalistic world.
You sound like you're coming from a different world, John. You sound like you're coming from a different world. You're saying that she's not BBC. You're blaming Israel, and once again, not facing the reality. The BBC is damaging its own reputation.
I'm coming from a world of truth, Martin. I'm coming from a world of journalism where people want to tell stories. I want to go to Gaza. You probably want to go to Gaza. Let's go and see what's happening there. Then we can possibly tell the truth. Then we won't be actually conflating various things. It's a nonsense that Gaza is unreported. That we'll never get away with that in any civilized country.
John Mayer, we'll have to leave it there. Enjoy that drink. We're at it. Astonishing. Thank you very, very much. Now, still to come, British spies and special forces have been exposed in the Afghan data leak. A furious SAS veteran joins me next. Don't miss that. You're with me, Martin Daubney, on GB News, British News Channel. First, here's your weather.
Even though we'll see a cloudy start, it'll be a bright outlook for the rest of the day. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Although it's cloudy out there for many of us, it's warm and humid, and there's the chance of heavy showers in some places, although many places are escaping largely dry. The brightest skies expected for northeast Scotland, as well as some southern and southeastern parts during the rest of the afternoon and into the evening. Elsewhere, a lot of cloud cover. Spells of showery rain moving through Scotland and Northern Ireland. Chance of a few thundery downpours, some intense rain rates. But elsewhere, it's mostly dry as we head into the night time. Clear spells for much of England and East Wales, and feeling muggy once again. An uncomfortable night for sleeping, with temperatures holding up in the mid or even high teens. We start off Friday with a lot of cloud cover once again and some mistiness around western and southern coasts. But inland there'll be some sunshine, a few dribs and drabs of rain for southwest England into Wales, some heavier and more persistent rain moving through North Wales, northwest England. Crossing Scotland at this time, brighter conditions following for western Scotland and Northern Ireland, but still with a few showers. And it's going to feel a little fresher in the far northwest, but not a great deal fresher. Meanwhile, the heat and humidity continues to climb across central and southeastern parts of England. In fact, it's going to be a hot day through the Midlands, East Anglia and the southeast. High 20s, low 30s in places, that heat and humidity combining to lead to thunderstorms, particularly for northeast England. Over the North York Moors, for example, we could see some very heavy rainfall later in the day. Look at the temperatures. High 20s, low 30s in many places towards the southeast. Feeling a little fresher, as I mentioned, towards the west and the northwest. Areas of cloud then moving through, and there's the chance of some further thunderstorms moving up from northern France to become extensive across eastern parts of the UK as we begin the weekend. Further thundery showers arriving from the west later.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Crash Law 24. sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. Motorists should be cautious on the A720 westbound between Sheriff Hall and Gilmerton due to a broken down vehicle. Traffic is managed through diversions on the A470 northbound from Nantgarve to Upper Boat due to roadworks. The A50 westbound in Stoke-on-Trent faces 10-minute delays. Northamptonshire experiences 30-minute delays on the A43 northbound. In Surrey, a medical emergency closed one lane on the A3 southbound. And on the trains, ScotRail faces disruption with buses replacing trains between Partick and Annisland. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
£54,321 cash could be yours. Cash that you could spend however you like. It's like having an extra £1,000 each week for a whole year to play with. Someone is guaranteed to win this amazing amount of cash. So make sure that someone could be you. For another chance to win £54,321 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB14 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom with Andrew and Beth.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie's here.
I'm Michelle Chu, Britain's News Channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection, tune in to GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's News Channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's News Channel.
Good afternoon. What an astonishing hour we've got ahead of you. Incredible breaking news. It's 5 p.m. Welcome to the Martin Daubney Show on GB News, broadcasting live from the heart of Westminster and all across the UK. And there it is, that breaking news. Our British heroes' lives may be at risk. The identities of our most cherished resources, Special Forces, SAS and MI6 operatives have been exposed in the Afghan data leak scandal. And the information is thought to be in the hands of the Taliban. A furious SS veteran will join me next. And violent protests have erupted at an asylum hotel in Epping after a resident of the hotel was accused of 3 sex attacks in 2 days, including one on a schoolgirl. And that was just 8 days after this individual arrived by small boat in the UK. I'll be joined by the leader of Epping Council, who's demanding that this hotel is shut down. If you thought the Afghan scandal couldn't get any worse, think again. It just got a whole lot worse. Incredible information that over 100 British names on that list, including our most cherished and protected assets, Special Forces, SAS, MI6 spies. The very definition of the MOD is to protect the nation and surely to protect its own. Those names fell into the hands of the Taliban, the murderous terrorists who wanted to wipe these individuals off the face of the earth. There could be a multi-billion-pound lawsuit from Afghans against the MOD. How on earth are these Special Forces boys and girls going to think next? Well, I'll be joined by one any moment now. You'll not want to miss it. I'm telling you what, he's going to give it both barrels. Get in touch. Let me know what you think. GBNews.com/YourSaver. Now's your headlines. Here's Tatiana Sanchez.
Martin, thank you. Yes, the top stories. Personal details of spies and special forces were included in a data leak that led to thousands of Afghans being secretly relocated to the UK. Information about more than 100 Britons was contained in the breach. Defence sources say details of MI6 spies, SAS and special forces personnel were included in the spreadsheet after they'd backed Afghans who'd applied to be brought to the UK. It comes after the personal information of thousands of people who applied for the Afghan relocations and assistance policy was released in error in 2022 by a defence official. Sir Keir Starmer and the German Chancellor have signed a historic treaty to boost ties on trade, security and migration. The German Chancellor says today's treaty comes under the major challenges of our time. These, Merz says, includes Britain's exit from Europe, which he says he found deplorable. Known as the Kensington Treaty, this is the first agreement of its kind between the UK and Germany. It includes new school exchanges and a legal crackdown on smuggling gangs behind small boat crossings. Downing Street says the deal marks a significant step in the tackling illegal migration across Europe. It comes as more than 21,000 people have crossed the Channel this year, up 56% on last year.
Crucially, we're also working together on illegal migration. And I want to thank Friedrich for his leadership on this, pledging decisive action to strengthen German law this year so that small boats being stored or transported in Germany can be seized, disrupting the route to the UK. And it's a clear sign that we mean business. We are coming after the criminal gangs in every way that we can.
In other news, 16 and 17-year-olds will be able to vote in the next general election under sweeping reforms unveiled today. Ministers say the changes will modernise democracy and help bring 9.5 million more people into the electoral system. The plans also include automated voter registration and new accepted IDs like UK bank cards and digital versions of driving licences. Campaign finance rules will also be tightened to stop foreign interference and shell company donations. It comes after the turnout at the last election was just over 59%, the lowest in over 2 decades. 4 Labour MPs have been suspended from the party for repeatedly rebelling against the government on welfare. The Prime Minister removed the party whip just after PMQs yesterday, meaning they'll now sit as independents in the House of Commons. 3 other MPs have also been stripped of their trade envoy roles. One dismissed envoy told us it was petty and a bit pointless. Another MP called the move ridiculous and vindictive. Downing Street insists it's about stamping out disloyalty before Parliament's summer break. Elsewhere, the government's flagship Drive project to tackle domestic abuse is getting a £53 million boost to expand nationwide over the next 4 years. It works directly with perpetrators to stop reoffending with one-to-one casework and measures like protection orders and drug and alcohol treatment. Home Office Minister Jess Phillips says the aim is to intervene early and relentlessly pursue those who pose a risk to women and girls.
What they do is stop the offending happening again and again. They stop the worst domestic abuse perpetrators, the most high-risk perpetrators, from going on to repeat with the same women and children, then on to a next family. This is all about, once and for all, making a focus on the perpetrators and not just tidying up messes after it's already happened.
In a pioneering first, 8 babies have been born in the UK using DNA from 3 people to stop deadly genetic diseases being passed on. The technique replaces faulty mitochondria from the mum's egg with a healthy one from a donor. It means children inherit almost all of their DNA from their parents, but some from another woman. All 8 babies were born free of mitochondrial disease, an incurable condition that can be fatal in infancy. And resident doctors are willing to discuss all options in crunch talks with the government to avert strike action, the co-chair of the Resident Doctors Committee has said. Crunch talks are due to be taking place this week in a bid to stop the 5-day strike by doctors in England, set to begin on the 25th of July. The Health Secretary is meeting the BMA's Resident Doctors Committee today, but tensions are already high after he questioned their credibility as a negotiating partner. The government said there's no more money for pay rises. The BMA argues doctors need a 29.2% uplift to reverse years of pay erosion. Those are the latest headlines for now. More news in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to news alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
And here's a quick snapshot of today's markets. The pound will buy you $1.3410 and 1.1572 euros. The price of gold is £2,487.88 per ounce, and the FTSE 100 is at 8,972 points.
My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
Tatiana, now some astonishing breaking news for you this afternoon, and it's this. The details of more than 100 Britons, including top spies from MI6 and our cherished special forces. Well, they were included in a massive data leak that resulted, of course, in thousands of Afghans being secretly relocated to the UK, and there was £7 billion earmarked against that. And this latest information is also thought to have fallen into the hands of the Taliban. This so-called kill list, we now understand, features top British strategic assets. This story just got a whole lot worse for the MOD and for the government. Let's bring in now GB News' political correspondent, Catherine Forster. Catherine, this was already one of the biggest scandals, perhaps, in all of British political history. It's just gone off the Richter scale.
It's almost unbelievable, was it not, for the fact that we know that this has happened. So we knew that the identities of about 19,000 people had accidentally been sent to the wrong people, putting potentially up to 100,000 at risk. We knew that nearly 7,000 Afghans have been or are being brought here as a direct result of that. And now we discover that the identities of British Special Forces and MI6 operatives were also given away in that document. So they are also now potentially at risk. Some of our most elite people, the level of dysfunction at the Ministry of Defence, I think, is off the scale. And for all the apologies and blame shifting, we still don't actually know that anybody has lost their job or faced any serious consequence. Meanwhile, people put at risk are people, Afghans, and a massive bill for the British taxpayer.
Let's just spell this out to be just abundantly clear with our viewership and our listeners. The identities of spies and our special forces operatives are the most closely guarded and strategically important secrets, perhaps of all. Their very essence depends upon their anonymity, the fact they can go in and go out seamlessly. This featured their identities, and it fell into the hands of the Taliban. It's a kill list. It was bad enough. It featured Afghans, but our most key strategic assets. And it gets worse, because the Telegraph are reporting the MOD knew this earlier this week when the Afghan scandal came out. And they are saying here, it's reported in the Telegraph, saying that the original super injunction still applied to these 100. They gagged the press for an additional 2 days, and now the full secret is out. That somehow makes it worse.
Yes, indeed. I did see the other day there were some Brits on the list, but we didn't have any idea who they were or how many, and how critically important their identities being protected is. And I think the unbelievable irony of this is this has happened because a Royal Marine inadvertently sent this to somebody that should not have access to it. How is it possible that within the Ministry of Defence, a Royal Marine has access to such sensitive information? How can this have happened? And how can it be that nobody, not necessarily the soldier concerned, but nobody at a higher level has faced serious consequences because the risks are astronomical to our own people, to Afghans. The cost is through the roof. The British public and Parliament has been kept completely out of the loop, and was it not for the work of various journalists to bring this to light, we still wouldn't know anything about it. And bear in mind that the government at one point allocated up to £7 billion to deal with this. Now, they're thinking it's only going to cost maybe up to £1 billion. Still a massive amount of money. And up until this point, there's been no scrutiny.
Let's bring on my next guest now. I can only imagine how he is feeling. It's a former SAS officer, Matthew Hellier. Matthew, I can only imagine how you're feeling. Tell me.
Absolutely flabbergasted at the incompetence of the successive governments to withhold this information is absolute treason. We are putting the lives of these brave individuals at risk, and not recently. This is 2 years. Why is this so important to us and the British public and the UK Special Forces and all the other agencies that are involved? It's because the Taliban are linked to every terrorist organisation on the globe. And that is why we went in there in 2001. But now we've given them all of the information, all of our secret information. This is top secret information that has been leaked throughout the world, throughout all of these terrorist organisations. So now what needs to happen? These people are at risk. Their families are at risk. They need to be relocated. They need to be reimbursed. People are now, they must be scared for their lives.
It's just incredible to think, Matthew Hellier, that the government has earmarked £1 billion in compensation for the Afghans. Can you just put into words for me how strategically vital it is for people like yourself, your colleagues and MI6 operatives to have the guarantee, the state guarantee of secrecy, of anonymity? It's everything.
Absolutely everything. Again, top secret information. This information must be controlled at the very highest level. Only certain individuals are allowed to handle this information. And however this has been leaked is an absolute tragedy. I just can't get it past, how on earth it's gone on. But, this is so important. Our soldiers now they must be so worried for their families. Something needs to happen. There is liability on this. Individuals, their heads must roll. Forget the Afghans. The Afghans volunteered to work for the coalition forces. They were paid well, and we looked after them. We brought them across, the individuals, but we didn't sign up to bring the families, the friends, and all of these unvetted individuals who we don't know where they come from, what their beliefs are. All that we must know is that we must secure and save the lives of our British soldiers now that are at risk through this hideous leak.
And Matthew Hellier, we know that even for regular citizens, it can be deadly and life-changing to be pursued by Islamist maniacs. We saw the Batley Grammar School teacher is still in hiding 4 years later. But you were guys that were out there defeating the Taliban. The targets on above the heads of SS operatives, Special Forces, MI6, they are true and dangerous.
Yeah, extremely dangerous. Heads must roll. This is the most important and the most serious leak that I've ever come across. Top secret information given to terrorists. But the worst thing is they've held on to this information for 2 years. And like you alluded to earlier, they're still holding on to it. They held on to it for another 2 days. This must be, it must be disclosed immediately. People must be put in safe houses. They must be relocated. There'll be name changes. There is so much that needs to happen now, and it needs to happen fast. Every terrorist organisation will have this information.
I mean, and that must be. I mean, look, you guys are the very, very best, the most fearless, bravest people, perhaps on the entire planet. But the threat of having Islamist psychopaths on your back must be scary even for people like yourselves.
Extremely scary. You know, once you finish in the military, you know, you make that choice. But we're talking about soldiers that are now on the front line, you know, who are fighting on the front line as we speak, and they must be worried for their families. You know, who's looking after their families in places like Hereford, Poole, Cheltenham? You know, where's the security now? Top secret information, leaked to terrorists. You know, there is a case here, and it shouldn't be the private soldier, the trooper on the ground. These are now, you know, top officials that need to be brought to justice now.
And what do you think that looks like, Matthew Hellier? Because we've heard all along, you know, I mean, unlike the people on this list, the person who did the leak is still guaranteed the veil of anonymity by the state. They're being completely protected. The 100 people on this list aren't.
No, you know, we don't know what the situation is, why the Royal Marine leaked it. You know, he probably wasn't. I don't know what rank he was, what position he was in. You know, maybe he just made a mistake. He probably didn't follow the right guidelines. He probably wasn't being led properly by our hierarchy. He probably didn't have the right protocols in place. You know, the vetting in this country, as we know, has been terrible, from the police to the political parties. Now we must take this serious. We must vet everyone, make sure all of the procedures and protocols are in place from now on.
Matthew Head, I want to ask you about this 2-year gagging order. Because in those 2 years, the Special Forces operatives themselves wouldn't have even known that they were on this list. They wouldn't have even known that the Taliban had got their names. Do you think there's a further argument now, looking back, that gagging order not only was the enemy of freedom of speech, the enemy of the press, but it actually increased the danger to the Brits on this list?
Of course it increased the danger. 2 years. You know, the terrorists are just taking their own time to target every single individual now on that list. They will have a list, they will have addresses, they will have names, and they can just pick these people off when they want, in their own time.
Matthew Hellier, it's such sobering news. It sincerely is. Thank you for coming on. I know we had to get all of you at short notice. I really want to take your personal take on this. Stay safe and give my love and respect to all of your colleagues. Thank you very much. Former SAS officer Matthew Hellier, once again, thank you for your service. Now, we've approached the Ministry of Defence for a comment, but as yet, we've heard nothing back. When we get that, of course, we will bring that to you. But previously, the Defence Secretary, John Healey, has offered a sincere apology on behalf of the government for this data breach and said it was a serious departmental error. And while the Shadow Defence Secretary, James Cartledge, apologised on behalf of the former Conservative government, which was in power, of course, when this leak happened. And now we've got some more breaking news for you. It's this. Emergency services are currently at the scene of an incident involving a bus in Minehead in Somerset this afternoon. They're trying to free trapped passengers. And the nature of the incident is not known at this time. But emergency services are at the scene, and among them, that is 5 helicopters. So clearly a significant incident there. And the Times newspaper is reporting that at least one person is dead. And the Avon and Somerset police have said this. Most of the passengers have been taken off of the bus. And Devon and Somerset's fire and rescue services are working to free the remaining occupants, and the ambulance service are also on the scene. And we have no confirmed information on the number of casualties or of the level of injuries. And South West Ambulance Service has said this. Along with other emergency services, we're attending a road traffic collision involving a coach near Minehead, and we'll bring you more news as we get it. Now, moving on, a student has told a jury he feared he'll be battered to death on the ground by a police officer at Manchester Airport. Mohammed Fahir Amaz is on trial at Liverpool Crown Court, accused of assaulting 3 Greater Manchester police officers as they attempted to arrest him in July last year. Now, giving evidence, Amaz said he acted in self-defence and in defence of his brother Mohammed Ahmad after he was grabbed at the ticket machine with no explanation. Now, both men from Rochdale deny allegations of assault. And GBNews reporter Jack Carson is at Liverpool Crown Court. Jack, a case that gripped the nation. What's the very latest?
Well, this morning at Liverpool Crown Court, we heard the end of the prosecution's case in this trial, discussing what happened when the two brothers, Mohammed Fahir Amaz and Mohammed Ahmad, were entered into custody. And this afternoon, when the defence opened, Mr. Fahir Amaz was giving evidence. We heard in the course of this afternoon that multiple members of his family are police officers for Greater Manchester Police, and when pressed on whether he had any hostility towards the police, he said no, not at all, admitting that he had a difficult job. He was then taken through the events of the day last July at Manchester Airport in Terminal 2 when he arrived with his brother Mohammed Ahmad to pick up their mother with their nephew. He said he spent most of the day at home and only had to wait 5 or 10 minutes for his mother to arrive. But when asked how was her flight, he explained that his mother had told him that it was the worst 8 hours of her life, saying that she'd been racially abused fellow passenger. While walking through the terminal at that point, the mother points out the gentleman that she alleges gave her that abuse, and Mr. Amaz said that he went up to him to try and find out what had happened and why he had said those things that his mother had alleged. There was a confrontation between the two when the wife of the man in the coffee shop we heard spoke up and said that it was actually directed at a little girl aimed next to his mother. He said that made him more upset and made the situation 10 times worse. At one point, he says the man in the coffee shop takes a step towards him, and at that point, he alleges threatens to kill him. At that stage, he says he threw 2 strikes, the first being a headbutt and the second being a punch, which he said to the jury he didn't know whether it had landed. He said that the threats of being killed by the man, allegedly in the Starbucks, continued. And it was then, when they were walking away, that he said he saw the man on the phone. Going then to the pay station and the situation with the police officers, he said that he was not told who had grabbed him. He said he was not aware at first that it was the police who had grabbed him. It was only when he turned around that he saw it was a police officer. And within that altercation, when he says PC Marsden tries to force him down to the floor, he said he was scared. I didn't know what he was trying to do. He said I was frightened. I did not want to go down to the ground. And he said he believed he would have battered me to the point I was dead. And he said and told the jury today he believed that PC Marsden would have killed him. He said he was acting in self-defence to try and protect him and his brother's life throughout the attack. And when pressed on whether he meant to cause any harm to the officers, he denied that. Here at Liverpool Crown Court, trial continues.
The trial does indeed continue. Thank you very much there, GBNews reporter Jack Carson, live from Liverpool Crown Court. Now, we've got some more breaking news to bring you, and it's this. It's just come in that the British Medical Association have confirmed that striking doctors are willing to discuss all options in crunch talks with the governments to avert strike action. Now, this comes, of course, as a 5-day walkout is scheduled to start next week, which could cause significant upheaval to the NHS in England, of course, and that comes as we find out today. 5 people are reported to have died as a consequence of the previous strike, according to coroners. Now, coming up, violent protests have erupted at an asylum hotel in Epping after a resident of the hotel was accused of 3 sex attacks in just 2 days. I'll be joined by the leader of the council next, who want that place closed down. You're with me, Martin Daubney, on GB News, Business News Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience, because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Your time is 5:28 on an action-packed day with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, violent protests have erupted at an asylum seeker hotel in Epping after a resident of the hotel was accused of 3 sex attacks in just 2 days, and one of them was on a schoolgirl. And this is all just 8 days after the individual allegedly arrived by small boat in the UK. Well, joining me now to discuss this is the leader of the Epping Forest District Council, Chris Whitbread. Chris, welcome to the show. Obviously, tensions are running high in your community, and is it your position, Chris Whitbread, you'd like this hotel to be closed down?
Absolutely. We've opposed this hotel being used from day one. It's just an inappropriate location, very close to the heart of the town. It's a small community. It's not a big community. We're just around the corner from a school. So the location's just completely inappropriate for this type of usage.
As I understand it, initially, Chris Whitbread, when this was used, I think during the pandemic, initially there were women and children in there, but over time, the demographic, the makeup of the residents, I believe there are 100 new residents in the 79-room hotel, is now almost entirely males, if not entirely.
That's correct. Back in 2020, during the pandemic, it was used by families primarily. And at that time, we still had our concerns because of the location and everything else, and the lack of infrastructure that goes with these type of units. So we were really concerned even back then and raised it numerous times. Obviously, it's really important that you get the right balance for both the local residents and for the asylum seekers who are staying there. At the end of the day, you don't want to see a community that's pulled apart by these type of things.
And Chris Whitbread, I understand there is another protest this afternoon, but I want to make it clear to our viewers, of course, nobody wants there to be any violence, any trouble there, and I know you would echo that, Chris Whitbread, but this is all about a lack of consultation, isn't it? It's about the public having no say, and as I understand it, Chris, you also had no say. This was dumped on you as a council. Who made that decision?
Absolutely. I would describe it that the Home Office instructed us rather than consulted with us. We were very clear. I've been very clear over the past week as well with Home Office officials this hotel should be closed. It's not suitable for this usage. And to make it worse, we've actually got 2 hotels within Epping Forest, within close proximity, 2.5 miles roughly from each other. And it's really not acceptable. And it's a lot of pressure on a small town. And when you see scenes like you've just shown on TV, it's really upsetting. But we do need local people to be calm. I know how they feel, but it's really important while we're trying to go through all the diplomatic ways we can of getting the Home Office to change their minds and close this hotel, we do really, really appeal for calm at the same time.
I would echo that sentiment, but also the Home Office seems to be pretty tin-eared. Historically, we've done so many of these stories here at GB News. There doesn't seem to be that kind of forward planning about the impact on the community, and communities that just have no say, no voice.
Yeah, I mean, this is a really difficult time, and I understand the pressures the government are under, but you've got to actually consult with people and make sure you're putting these vulnerable individuals in the right places, and this is not the right place. So I understand the anger of local people. I'm a resident too, and I want to make sure that the residents of Epping Forest are safe, but I also want to make sure those vulnerable people who are in those hotels are safe as well.
And it's perfectly justifiable for people to have concerns and to voice them to you. But just to echo sentiment, nobody wants there to be any trouble. Thank you very much. That's the leader of Epping Forest District Council, Chris Whitbread. Thank you for your time. I really, really do appreciate it. Now, just to remind you that the asylum seeker charged with sexually assaulting the schoolgirl has denied those allegations. And a Home Office spokesperson told GB News this: the right to protest is fundamental to our democracy, but this cannot cross the line into unlawful or violent behaviour. And we continue to work closely with Essex Police. And while it would be inappropriate to comment on ongoing police investigations, we have already taken action to ban foreign nationals who commit sexual offences from being granted asylum. And we'll do everything in our power to pursue deportation from the UK so that these vile criminals are off our streets and paying the price for their crimes. Now, plenty more reactions come throughout the rest of the show. But first, here's your traffic and your travel update.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. On the M8, a broken down vehicle eastbound at Junction 1 is causing delays. Exercise caution and allow extra time for your journey. The A470 northbound between Nantgarw and Upperboat is closed for maintenance with diversions in place. In Leeds, congestion on the M621 eastbound between junctions 3 and 7 may cause minor delays. The A50 eastbound in Staffordshire between the A522 and junction with the A518 is experiencing congestion with an expected 10-minute delay tonight. And on the trains, buses replace trains between Partick and Anniesland. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
The headlines at 5:30. Emergency services are working to free the occupants of a bus crash near Minehead in Somerset. That bus was involved in a collision between Wedden Cross and Timbercombe today. It's unclear how many people have been injured and how seriously. In other news, personal details of spies and special forces were included in a data leak that led to thousands of Afghans being secretly relocated to the UK. Information about more than 100 Britons was contained in the breach. Sir Keir Starmer and the German Chancellor have signed a historic treaty to boost ties on trade, security and migration. The German Chancellor said, "We see the scale of the challenges our continent faces today and we intend to meet them head-on." Sir Keir Starmer spoke this afternoon.
And it's a clear sign that we mean business. We are coming after the criminal gangs in every way that we can.
16 and 17-year-olds will be able to vote in the next general election under sweeping reforms. The changes also include automated voter registration and new IDs like UK bank cards and digital driving licences. And those are the latest headlines for now. More news at 6 o'clock.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to news alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Although it's cloudy out there for many of us, it's warm and humid, and there's the chance of heavy showers in some places, although many places are escaping largely dry. The brightest skies expected for northeast Scotland, as well as some southern and southeastern parts during the rest of the afternoon and into the evening. Elsewhere, a lot of cloud cover. Spells of showery rain moving through Scotland and Northern Ireland. Chance of a few thundery downpours, some intense rain rates. But elsewhere, it's mostly dry as we head into the night time. Clear spells for much of England and East Wales, and feeling muggy once again. An uncomfortable night for sleeping, with temperatures holding up in the mid or even high teens. We start off Friday with a lot of cloud cover once again and some mistiness around western and southern coasts. But inland there'll be some sunshine, a few dribs and drabs of rain for southwest England into Wales, some heavier and more persistent rain moving through North Wales, northwest England. Crossing Scotland at this time, brighter conditions following for western Scotland and Northern Ireland, but still with a few showers. And it's going to feel a little fresher in the far northwest, but not a great deal fresher. Meanwhile, the heat and humidity continues to climb across central and southeastern parts of England. In fact, it's going to be a hot day through the Midlands, East Anglia and the southeast. High 20s, low 30s in places, that heat and humidity combining to lead to thunderstorms, particularly for northeast England. Over the North York Moors, for example, we could see some very heavy rainfall later in the day. Look at the temperatures. High 20s, low 30s in many places towards the southeast. Feeling a little fresher, as I mentioned, towards the west and the northwest. Areas of cloud then moving through, and there's the chance of some further thunderstorms moving up from northern France to become extensive across eastern parts of the UK as we begin the weekend. Further thundery showers arriving from the west later.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask. OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician. Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits. You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it. That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless. But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show. Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Welcome back. The time is 5:39. You're with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. And astonishing story next, because a Bury-based Islamic radio station has been fined for airing an anti-Semitic speech. And now it's hitting back, because guess what? They accuse Ofcom of Islamophobia after being sanctioned for clear hate speech. Now, the row has reignited debate about redefining Islamophobia and whether it could protect extremism instead of tackling it. Well, let's speak now, I'm delighted to say, with the founder of Tell Mama, and that is Fiaz Miguel. Fiaz, a pleasure to have your company as ever. This case, I think, is just mind-blowing. Let's quickly run through the details. Salam BCR, an Islamic radio station, was fined £3,500. It fell for an Ofcom breach. It broadcast a speech made by a radical imam denouncing Jews as the biggest enemies of humanity. But that's bad enough. But it gets worse, because despite being chastised, they then claimed this was Islamophobia. This is ridiculous.
First of all, it's a pleasure to be on your show again. And second of all, I want to say it is totally ludicrous. It makes a mockery of the basic element of having oversight over organisations like this. Ofcom are simply trying to do their job. First of all, the comments this station made are so appalling. And then second of all, just to throw smears against Ofcom to try to deflect from their horrendous discussion and behaviour and activity says a lot about this station. And actually, frankly, I think they should, the Charity Commission's looking at them at this moment in time. And I believe the Charity Commission should have some teeth and start to really look at what it can do to address this station and its horrendous language.
You're right, it's run by a charity called Markaz Al Huda. Can I bring you on to the broader point, though, of the fact here, the safety card? There's no basis whatsoever to claim this is Islamophobia. They made a clear broadcasting breach. The law is the law, you know, and they were punished accordingly. But nevertheless, the hate preacher in question and the station itself cried Islamophobia. I put it to you, Fayez Mughal. A lot of people are concerned about this definition of Islamophobia, and they've said it will give cover to people who are clearly breaching the law and order of the land. Does this case really focus on the fact that that could be a problem?
Absolutely it does. Look, if people throw around accusations of Islamophobia, we all know, we basically understand that any definition could be bent out of shape, misused, attributed to any bad faith actor who wants to defend their bad behavior behind a definition. This definition idea is horrendous. It is a sop given by this government because they lost seats in Muslim majority areas. And so they're giving this definition sop, which frankly bad faith actors will use to malign other people doing their jobs like Ofcom, potentially, and also to basically shut down free speech, but actually legitimate speech. And so we must resist at every step the implementation of this definition, which Labour are using as a sop, a political sop, to get back into favour into sections and parts of Muslim communities from which they've lost votes.
And that is a serious point. You believe that the Labour Party here is redefining Islamophobia to pander to the Muslim voter base?
Well, the answer is why now? Why now? You know, the context and the time is important. Why now all of a sudden? Why now at this moment in time? Why not 2 years from now? The fact of the matter is they have lost support. The fact of the matter is this is a sop. But actually, in producing this sop, what they are doing will create confusion, more litigation, bad faith actors trying to close down criticism of Islam. I'm a Muslim. I don't care if people criticize Islam. I will defend their right to criticize Islam or any religion. But actually, that's a fundamental of our society. You can criticize anything because those are free and democratic societies. So I say to your viewers, and I really make this point, that actually we must resist this definition. Otherwise, there's a real chance it could affect people's employment by maligning them. It could cause greater litigation. And last but not least, allow bad faith actors to start smearing ordinary individuals for basically having a right for basic free speech.
And more to the point, this redefinition could give cover to people actually wishing harm. The Batley Grammar School teacher is still in hiding all these years later. We need greater transparency, not a de facto blasphemy law.
Absolutely, we do. And you know, and your example is your example is very, very profound. Here we have a teacher who has lost his career, is still in hiding, and frankly, let's not forget the howls of Islamophobia. And I've worked on thousands of cases of anti-Muslim, and I am disgusted by these kind of smearing howls of Islamophobia thrown at individuals doing their job. This young man has lost his career, his livelihood, his security, his future, because people started smearing this young man simply doing his job. And his job was to open the minds of people, to get them critiquing things we want within education, within our young people.
Thank you so much for your honesty and openness today, and particularly thank you for your comments there on the Batley Grammar School teacher. Friends of mine are in contact with him, and I'm sure those words will give him and his family great strength. Profound thanks there. And that's the founder of Tal Mama, Fayez Mughal. Pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you, sir. Now, a spokesman for Angela Rayner's department said this: "We are absolutely committed to defending freedom of speech, and any proposed definition must be compatible with the right to freedom of speech and expression." Now, if in search of some holiday sun this year, then here is the forecast for some of the top European destinations.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean All Clear Skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Lots of hot, strong sunshine around the Mediterranean at the moment. A few showers are possible in Sicily and inland over Turkey. We may just see 1 or 2 showers. Most of the coast here dry and sunny. Much of the Greek islands also dry, fine and sunny. 1 or 2 showers through the spine of Italy, but again, the coast's dry and fine. Northern parts of Spain may see a bit more cloud and a few showers. Quite a brisk wind blowing over the Canaries, but it's going to be hot in Tenerife. Temperatures just dipping a little bit here into the weekend.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
My eye this morning, because I say it all the time. You can't say gents at work. You're deemed to be not inclusive.
It's not inclusive. This comes from a tribunal which took place where a woman took umbrage at one of her bosses using the term in an email, "Dear gents." Well, you can't use the word gent. I mean, I wonder what it's like when you go to the gents now, whether you have to say going to the non-gender specific lavatories. It's a phrase. It shows that you're a bit old, they say, using the word gents. Now, I mean, I don't regard myself as old, although some may disagree with that.
This caught my eye as well, because one of your lovely presenters, who's on, I believe, at 6 o'clock, Michelle Dewberry, she very often says, you know, "Thank you, gents." I don't think she's polite. I don't think she's going to be changing. But it's when you look into this story, there was a little bit more to this than meets the eye, because this email was sent round by management in this insurance company, and one of the ladies who was on a list to be made redundant, along with men, used that email as evidence as to why there was discrimination going on. So there was a little bit more to this, and what the court said was that, you know, this was clumsy language, but this was managerial incompetence. And I don't think we should in any way take that as meaning it's got any wider.
So hang on, the court even said it's clumsy language?
The court said it was clumsy language.
In itself.
I mean, they shouldn't be using that language, but what I'm saying is I don't think this means that we have to all change our behaviour because of this one.
But what next, Anna?
Decision.
I've noticed a trend particularly in younger people, to call people guys, even women.
Yeah.
GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Your time is 10 to 6. Now, from tractors to trending videos, the Merseyside farmer Ollie Harrison is ploughing the power of social media, of course, for a good cause. Now, with millions of views and a massive online following, he's now raised more than £93,000 for the North West Air Ambulance Service, one birthday bumper donation at a time. I'm delighted to say I'm joined in the studio in Westminster by Ollie Harrison. Ollie, welcome to the show. Tell us about this birthday message service you started and why you decided to donate to the Air Ambulance Service.
Yeah, so it's actually 100,000. That's why I said, because I'm always on here moaning. So I thought, well, this is a good news story. But with the gift aid, it's over 100,000.
Yeah.
So I do a YouTube video every day of what's going on the farm, and because of that, people would message me and say, "Can you say happy birthday to my little boy or whatever, or me dad?" And I was doing this, but of course, once I started doing it, everyone kept sending me messages every day. And when 30 or 40,000 people watch every day, there's a lot of birthdays. So it was getting out of hand. So I was writing them on the tractor window, then I was writing them on the front of one of the tractor bonnets with a marker pen, dry mark, and washing it off. And I said, this is getting out of hand. If you want a birthday mention, leave a donation to the air ambulance and I'll read it out.
And we've got some footage there. Just talk us through the viewers on what you got. So you're basically writing down the names. There you go, Jack Wilkinson, 6.
Yeah, so I think this was Sunday's birthday. So I write them on, film it in the end of the video, and then, wish people happy birthday.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was about 3 years ago when I decided that I was going to start letting them leave a donation for it. Anyway, it's just grown and grown and grown. It's £100,000. It ticked over on Sunday.
It's amazing. And, of course, the North West Air Ambulance Service farmers rely on, because if you have an accident in the middle of nowhere, you can't get an ambulance into your field.
This is it, and it's crazy that the air ambulances are all funded by charity.
Yeah,
they don't get any taxpayers' money, anything from the NHS. It's all charitable donations that keep the air ambulances going. And, of course, a lot of road accidents, they're out to that. It's not just farmers that they look after anyone, or if they've got to get you to hospital quick, they'll use an air ambulance.
Now, you're always raising money. You do a lot of media as well, but it has been, I think, a particularly challenging year this year for you, has it? Because of the dry weather, bit of a drought, and so the farmers facing even more hardship.
Yeah, the yields are massively down. We've had only a third our annual average rainfall already this year, and it means the crops are burnt up to nothing, and there's not much yield there at all.
And that's your farm. We see on screen that's your big combine harvester, and all that dust behind there. That shows that it's dry as a bone on the ground, mate.
Yeah. So when we harvest grain, we start harvesting at around 18% and make sure we get it under 15 to store. Well, we started this year at 11% moisture content, which is just unheard of for the UK. Well, that was what the wheat was coming off at. And it's obviously very early as well, probably 2 or 3 weeks earlier than normal.
And so that means less yield, that means less profit, that means more pressure on farmers, and that's what you're all about, keeping farmers in the news.
Yeah.
Beautiful stuff. So. Well, Ollie Harrison, absolute pleasure to have you in the studio, and I shall enjoy a quick pint with you after this. I think it's your round, my old son. Thank you very, very much indeed. A great cause to end on a huge action-packed day. Talking about action-packed, up next, Jubes & Co, the queen of primetime debate. Jubes, what's on your menu?
Hi Martin, great show as always. Well, of course, I want to look at this whole notion of Keir Starmer and the German Chancellor loving themselves, announcing things today when it comes to trying to stop these gangs. But of course, we'll be looking at eye-watering scenes in the Channel that, if you ask me, shows they don't have a hope in anything of actually doing so. Also, Jess Phillips, she's coming under fire today. She's supposed to be all about protecting women, but she doesn't seem able to actually acknowledge that certain groups within our society are posing a higher risk to women than more. Instead, she just wants to blame all men. How are you going to protect us then if you can't even acknowledge what the actual problem even is? Aaron Bastani, Kelvin McKenzie and me. We'll see you in a sec.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Although it's cloudy out there for many of us, it's warm and humid, and there's the chance of heavy showers in some places, although many places are escaping largely dry. The brightest skies expected for northeast Scotland, as well as some southern and southeastern parts during the rest of the afternoon and into the evening. Elsewhere, a lot of cloud cover. Spells of showery rain moving through Scotland and Northern Ireland. Chance of a few thundery downpours, some intense rain rates. But elsewhere, it's mostly dry as we head into the night time. Clear spells for much of England and East Wales, and feeling muggy once again. An uncomfortable night for sleeping, with temperatures holding up in the mid or even high teens. We start off Friday with a lot of cloud cover once again and some mistiness around western and southern coasts. But inland there'll be some sunshine, a few dribs and drabs of rain for southwest England into Wales, some heavier and more persistent rain moving through North Wales, northwest England. Crossing Scotland at this time, brighter conditions following for western Scotland and Northern Ireland, but still with a few showers. And it's going to feel a little fresher in the far northwest, but not a great deal fresher. Meanwhile, the heat and humidity continues to climb across central and southeastern parts of England. In fact, it's going to be a hot day through the Midlands, East Anglia and the southeast. High 20s, low 30s in places. That heat and humidity combining to lead to thunderstorms, particularly for northeast England. Over the North York Moors, for example, we could see some very heavy rainfall later in the day. Look at the temperatures. High 20s, low 30s in many places towards the southeast. Feeling a little fresher, as I mentioned, towards the west and the northwest. Areas of cloud then moving through, and there's the chance of some further thunderstorms moving up from northern France to become extensive across eastern parts of the UK as we begin the weekend. Further thundery showers arriving from the west later.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good evening, this is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. The A470 northbound from Nantgarv to Upper Boat is closed for maintenance. Diversions are in place. Leeway on the M6 and M621 is constrained. Expect delays on the M6 southbound near Junction 18 due to a broken down vehicle, while the M621 eastbound traffic is flowing slowly. The A50 eastbound in Staffordshire is congested. The A43 northbound in Northamptonshire is congested. In Surrey, the A3 southbound is partially closed due to a medical emergency. And on the trains, buses are replacing trains between Partick and Anniesland due to major disruption. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Imagine having an extra £1,000 to spend each week for an entire year. £54,321 in tax-free cash could be yours. Cash to spend however you like. £54,321 in cash could be landing in your bank account this year. For another chance to win £54,321 cash,